Whew. Greetings, fellow Emblemites. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And welcome to the Season 4 finale of Spielberg Month. Since Steven Spielberg doesn't do audio commentary on his own work, we thought we'd do the work for him. After all he's done for us, it's the least we could do for him. We've selected four films from his vast catalog of work to commentate on. So let's get ready, Player One, to go on a series of podcasts that requires no artificial intelligence to comprehend. We're encompassing everything under the empire of the sun, and always, yes, always, coming up with new observations to share along the way. It's time for the next blockbuster installment of
Spielberg Month. Da, 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 da.
Do,
Da, 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 da.
Yes. All right, Dragon, let's dive right into it. I am very curious. Dragon, I'm going to have you go first. What did you think of Always? Of course, let's set this up really quick.
Yeah, we got to set up.
This is a Season 4 finale of Spielberg Month. Dragon, this is our biggest jump into the deep end of the Spielberg pool that we have ever done, my friend. You and I, until a day or so ago, knew virtually nothing about this movie beyond the fact that, yeah, it's got some flying in it, and it's like a weird ghost-style love story, and, we knew the main stars, of course, Richard Dreyfuss, Holly Hunt, and John Goodman. But, yeah, Dragon, this was a big kind of question mark, a big mystery in the Spielberg catalog. And that's exactly why we went with it, folks, is the finale. It's like, look, at this point, our selections are getting a little thin. It's like, I don't necessarily think Lincoln constitutes a finale per se. Maybe Munich. I don't know. It's like slim pickings, folks. We're going to get into it. We want to do Duel. Trust us. We want to do Duel, but that's just the means of finding copies that we can all, sync up to. But Dragon, Always. This is like I said, it's a big question mark. It's a big, just like, what the hell is this movie? So I throw it over to you, man. I have strong opinions, but are they positive? Are they negative? I'm not going to tell you yet. I want to know what you thought of the movie, Dragon.
So Always feels like Spielberg in film school and kind of that early era of kind of the New Hollywood era Spielberg, that it's called I don't know why I keep blanking on it. It's like the New Hollywood, the New Age. New Hollywood, right? Just quite simply New Hollywood. I don't know why I keep trying to complicate it. Anyway, point being, it feels really akin to kind of like Spielberg, in his youth and kind of firing from the hip. And, again, it feels like just kind of Spielberg kind of getting experimental and stuff. It feels very much kind of, in some ways, it's cut from the Empire of the Sun cloth. And of course, it's made a couple of years after Empire of the Sun, so it kind of feels appropriate. This, to me, is a movie rooted in film as a medium for Spielberg. I think this is made with a lot of passion. It's not trying to be overly ambitious, but there's a lot of passion and a lot of love for the medium in this film. It's coming from a very honest and humble place. It's kind of like a breather film between the landmarks in Spielberg's career. That's kind of the best way I could describe it. It's kind of between the landmarks and the gambles. I mean, again, the biggest gamble you had kind of in the 80s. Again, I say between because you have the Indiana Jones films, because the same year as this, you have Last Crusade come out. Mm-hmm. It's after this though, so it's kind of like the big enders there. So it's kind of like between. I know I forget exactly where The Color Purple fits in the things, but I forget if that's before or after Empire of the Sun. Point being, you have a couple films that again are definitely
Purple, very early 90s.
That's a thing. So again, I might be botching that one. The point being, it's this film feels like a breather between kind of like the iconic ones. And again, this and Empire of the Sun, they feel like either experimental films or just films made from Spielberg just for the love of it. And there's a lot of connective tissue between them. So we kind of lucked out, and just like this being kind of fits the theme of of this season just by sheer coincidence. I just wanted to point that out. I was watching, like, oh man, we just kind of lucked out on that one. It's a charming little movie in kind of the here's the thing. I can't quite call like a film. I laid out this at the very beginning of Spielberg Month, as I've kind of laid out in other seasons of Spielberg Month. There are usually two categories of Spielberg film. You have a Steven Spielberg film. That's kind of your iconic ones. It's your Indiana Jones, your E.T.s, your Schindler's List, that sort of thing. You have then you have a film that happens to be directed by Steven Spielberg, where you have your AIs. Yeah.
Let's see, your clear ones.
Yeah, your films that just happen to be even some ones that I love, like one could say your Catch Me If You Cans to an extent, and like The Terminal. That's like, it happens to be directed by Steven Spielberg. It's like, oh, look who directed it. That sort of reaction. Not necessarily like a casting of doom, but again, that's the difference. And this falls somewhere in between, because it feels like film school Spielberg. It feels like the new
Dragon, this is a film directed by. I'm sorry. This is a Steven Spielberg student film.
There you go.
That's the best way I can describe it. It's like, it's not necessarily a Steven Spielberg film, but I wouldn't say the whole like directed by means like Spielberg's heart is in this thing for sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. And that's the thing. And the charm, I feel a lot of the charm of this movie comes from those Spielbergian touches, and Dreyfuss as well. Because you have Dreyfuss, who of course is a big totem of Spielberg and kind of the most successful kind of young buck portion of his career. Like the two films right out the gate both saw Richard Dreyfuss in it. And I think you can really feel the love that the two of them. Now get into this with the brief background that we do have soon, but the idea is that these two really love this movie. They really got it. They love the material that went into this movie. I think it really shows. So I was pleasantly surprised. That's my thesis on it.
Yeah, Dragon, I'm close to loving this thing. I got to admit, I am very, very happy with this as a finale. I mean, my main goal with this podcast, Dragon, I don't necessarily even want to do beat by beat on this thing. It's like, I don't necessarily think we have to be talking about the stuff on screen. I think my main goal with this commentary is just to educate people on why this is a really, really good movie. And in my opinion, Dragon, I think this might be the diamond in the rough of Spielberg.
I think that's a good comparison.
This might be the Spielberg hidden gem, Dragon. I honestly think we found it.
Hidden gem is the absolute perfect word.
That's what it's the hidden gem, Dragon. I like, and that's one of the things that we've gone looking for. We've searched down different alleyways and gone down more obscure routes with Spielberg. This is the best obscure Spielberg movie we've covered so far in Spielberg Month.
Yeah, we had to do all sorts of digging. We had to use like some sort of like medallion contraption. It was like a whole thing, but we found the diamond in the rough eventually.
I mean, Dragon, I don't know. It's honestly, Dragon, getting a little personal here. Of course, me living in Northern California, forest fires.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was going to get you.
Yeah.
Again, we had no idea that was going to factor into the movie at all, folks. Just complete surprise.
So this, I mean, this movie to me is like Jaws with forest fires, and it happens to have a weird supernatural element mixed in too. And oh god, I'm glowing about it, man. I am. I kind of love this movie, Dragon. I really do. Not just because I wanted to like it for the sake of the podcast, just because I even delayed this for an hour to make sure that I got in a rewatch, just to be like, I don't know, was I just glowing the first time? And I was like, no, watching it the second time, there's things about it that we'll get into. There's a couple elements that aren't as developed as they could be per se. But man, I mean, this is young Spielberg just knocking it out of the park with some, I'll say this much, Dragon, like Empire of the Sun might be like technically a more impressive film and a more ambitious film, but I would watch this over Empire of the Sun any day, because this is just so much more like, me, Dragon, I like scaled back. in a lot of ways. Like, it's, you know, some things I like epic, you know, like I like my end games and stuff, but you know, to me, like, that's why Wes Anderson is one of my favorite filmmakers, is because, you know, all his movies kind of take place in this boxed in world. And to me, this might be the most intimate of any Spielberg movie, while still having some really, really good action set pieces with the firefighting stuff. And that's what I love about this thing, man. It's kind of the best of both worlds. You get that blockbuster Spielberg with the firefighting, and you get the super personal stuff with the you know, with the relationship drama. And on top of that, you get weird, trippy, experimental Spielberg with the afterlife stuff. It's great.
Yep.
I don't know, man. Yeah, I'm all right. Anyways, fire into background, Dragon. I'm sorry.
Very brief background, because again, as Tiki said, this really is a diamond in the rough. There's not a whole lot you can find about this movie, but here's the little I could find. It's a really fascinating background. I
will wager to say that this is going to be the most comprehensive form of any media on the internet surrounding Always, Dragon. I am serious. This is the definitive Always retrospective on the internet right now. There's no one who's covering this movie as much as we are.
I swear I'm not joking when I say this. One of the, in terms of like seeing like the retrospective on Always, you know what it clocked in at timing wise, like the most comprehensive thing I could find.
6 minutes?
Nope.
What?
About like three minutes and change.
I found a 6-minute video, so I hate you.
All right, fair enough.
But still, 6 minutes. This movie deserves way more than 6 minutes. It deserves way more than 3 minutes, man. It deserves a full-on conversation and, you know, being put under the microscope. And that's exactly what we're going to do for it, but not for some background. Dragon, fire away.
All right, background goes simply like this. So Always is actually something I guess I meant to mention in the thesis, but I mean, it's kind of a big background detail. So Always is actually a remake. I don't know if it's Spielberg's only remake, but it's
War of the Worlds.
Stupid me. Sorry.
I mean, I doubt that's the only one.
That's the thing. I'm trying to think if there's more. I guess if there's any aside from War of the Worlds.
Kind of the Lost World Jurassic Park. Like, kind of.
Well, I mean, again, remake is there a Jurassic Park Lost World before this in film?
No. But I'm saying there is the Lost World where you know, a group of scientists takes dinosaurs to New York City and they run amok.
Oh,
it's basically King Kong with dinosaurs, and it's
called
The Lost World.
All right, there's an argument made with that one. We don't have time for that argument. Point being, Always is fine. This might be the earliest, like possibly the first remake that Spielberg did. Technically. Okay, so the point being, Always is a remake of not only just a remake, it's a remake of one of the first movies, of one of Spielberg's favorite films. So I mentioned the works of David Lean when we talked about Empire of the Sun. Spielberg is a huge fan of David Lean, a very prolific moment in Spielberg's career is when he watched Lawrence of Arabia, and that kind of like he was about to give up directing because he saw the most beautiful film he ever saw in his life. Now, one of the early films that he saw, most likely predating Lawrence of Arabia for him, would be the film that this is based on, which is called A Guy Named Joe. It's from 1943.
I'm sure predating Lawrence of Arabia, yeah.
So, A Guy Named Joe is... I'm sorry, yeah, you're right, it's a stupid, I don't know why I phrased it like that. God. Well, I mean, predating when he saw it. I think that's what I
No, I mean, I'm saying the movie predates Lawrence of Arabia, too.
That's the thing, sure, yeah, anyway, sorry, getting sidetracked. Point being, there's a movie called A Guy Named Joe. It's from '43. It's set during World War II. It's about bombers. So, like, you know, basically, it's still like kind of the same. You know, they drop something, it's just they drop bombs. Which, of course, they do work it into this movie though in kind of a clever way. So, again, the point being, it's a World War II movie that was written by the great Dalton Trumbo. You know, the famous kind of blacklisted screenwriter from the McCarthy era. Dalton Trumbo.
Oh dear.
Of course, Cranston played him wonderfully in a biopic.
Yes, I was going to say Cranston.
Yep, Cranston with a mustache, the best kind of Cranston. Anyway, point being, A Guy Named Joe pretty much has the same plot. You know, the pilot passes, and of course, he educates the next generation while kind of making peace with the love of his life. That sort of story. Again, same outline of a story, and it starred Spencer Tracy. For the kids out there, says,
Oh,
"Who's
nice.
Spencer?"
Nice.
For the kids out there saying, "Who's Spencer Tracy?" Well, visually one of the influences on Carl Fredricksen, but also from this little movie that everyone knows is the remake with Bernie Mac. But guess who's coming to dinner?
Oh, dude, I love Spencer Tracy.
Spencer Tracy is awesome. This is like young Spencer Tracy in this movie, though. Anyway, so the point being, so that's the movie it's based on, and this just shows you how far back and how intimate this movie is for Spielberg. So when he was working on Jaws, the first big studio, I know the first studio movie was like Sugarland, right? All right. Hello. All right. Anyway, so the first Spielberg movie was, I believe, was Sugarland Express, and then you had Jaws, of course. And working on Jaws, the most stressful, blockbuster of its day. It was just very, very stressful on the man. And during that very troubled production, he and Dreyfuss, they would quote lines from the movie to each other. And when this, and basically, hello. Sorry, folks, if this is okay. Sorry about that. A little sidetracked. Sorry. The point being, when they're working on Jaws, very troubled production, Spielberg and Dreyfuss, they would quote lines and moments from the movie to each other to keep up their own morale because they thought they were working on a big disaster. And again, it was a very harrowing production. So years down the line, when they want to, they want to remake it essentially. Of course, they update it and they kind of get rid of the World War II setting. They go with the kind of the firefighting, the aerial firefighting kind of update. So by '89, of course, '89, same year, makes Last Crusade. You get this, movie. Anyway, so like Empire, the last real big thing. Forgive my scatteredness, folks. The last big thing I got to hit here before we all weave some stuff into the thing. The last big thing to hit is that, like Empire of the Sun, this movie does share something in common, where it was a tribute to the films and filmmakers that inspired him to direct, as well as a connection to his father, which is something that kind of permeates a number of Spielberg films. Permeates a number of Spielberg movies where Spielberg, of course, has always a lot of daddy issues. We like to joke many a time. In this case, it's Spielberg. The correlation, the connection to his father when he would tell him World War II stories, and basically, I believe his father was like a radio controller or something during the war. So the point is, like, he was in the thick of it, just kind of helping out on the sidelines. I don't want to sound like it's offhanded or something like that. I guess one more thing is that Paul Newman, Robert Redford, reportedly they were looked at for roles in the movie. They were looked at for I believe for Pete and for Pete and the Ted character, and basically they both wanted Pete because it's such a rich, awesome character, and they both just kind of they couldn't reconcile it. I don't know how true that is. That might be a little bit of a rumor there, but the fact of the matter is, Richard Dreyfuss, he was kind of tailor made for this thing. They both felt really passionate about it, and they kind of it was no surprise that years later when Spielberg has enough clout to kind of go back and do this. I mean, it is very much a passion project, depending on how you look at it. It's really deep cuts. It's really just something that he cared a great deal about. And I think that really shows in the movie at the end of the day. I guess just while I'm kind of naming off a few things here, also a little something Spielberg's kind of famous for. He's kind of like the Oprah of directors to an extent in regards to, sometimes Spielberg gives gifts to the cast as like a rap gift. And this thing he's done a number of films. I don't know if it's supposed to have gotten started here or was just like kind of like yet another film where this was done, but I've heard I think he gave the Animaniacs crews bikes, like a series of bikes to ride their stuff on. Where again, famously, Spielberg likes to give away Mazda Miatas, the car. He likes to give away cars to actors, and of course, this has kind of a limited cast. I'm sure this would be like a contender for I give them Mazda Miatas, just throw them out there. I've got ET money to burn. Anywho. So so we're getting ready to go into Always here, and of course, in just firing into the commentary, I'm going to tell you folks here, we're not going to be able to read comments as we're going through the movie. We are Philip?
Hey, sorry about that.
Folks,
I didn't know if it was
right.
problem on
Go
your
ahead.
end or my end, so let's go ahead.
Right. Anyway, sorry. Point being, we're getting ready for the commentary here, folks. Of course, I'm going to urge you. We're not going to be able to read comments throughout the show. We'll check in with them at the very end here because we're going to be kind of focused on the movie. And of course, if you don't have a copy of this, I mean, it's on Netflix currently. And that's pretty much kind of what it let us do with the view of the film. It's on Netflix. However, you're streaming or you're renting or maybe you own a copy. If you're a true Blue Spielberg fan, you had the diamond in the rough on your shelf the whole time. Line up to the 0-0 mark. Again, you can follow along with us. You can follow along with us rather easily, or again, hopefully, we'll be kind of descriptive enough for kind of going in a vaguely chronological, kind of a linear manner. We'll just kind of be going kind of through, not beat by beat, but just kind of like, I guess, kind of powering on through. Hopefully, be able to follow on the conversation without having to watch it, so you'll be able to enjoy it as a podcast as well as a commentary. And we're going to go lethal weapon style. 1, 2, 3, go. When Tiki says go. All right. All ready?
All right, folks. Let's get ready. Always in 1, 2, 3, go. All right, so one of the things that Spielberg, of course, is known for is setting his movie's tone very early on, and we get this ominous sound effect as we go over the Universal logo.
So the thing that opens this movie, you gotta remember, this is also kind of considered a little bit of obviously there's funny bits in this movie as well, so it's kind of remember, like, Spielberg, he's really trepidatious to go into kind of a full-on comedy, especially kind of a wartime comedy. I know this isn't wartime, I'm just saying in the sense of involving planes and everything, and the roots that this movie has in war. And of course, 1941 is something that still has traumatized Spielberg to this day.
Okay, can I just say this opening shot is effing fantastic?
It is, and that's what I'm saying. So you have a little
magic, just like as soon as I saw this watching, I just instantly got hooked in.
Precisely.
For those who are just walking along, for those listening along, it's we see two guys in a fishing boat just kind of casually like whistling, almost half asleep, and then suddenly, Dragon, what do we see?
We see we see a plane just kind of coming at him, almost like a Jaws mirroring shot. Like if Jaws could skim, he would skim like this. and basically the plane, again, a skilled pilot. So a pilot so skilled is in there like him. I assume he's like maybe gaining some water in there as well. That's my guess, but I assume that's why he's kind of skimming the water to kind of collect the water, and then he's just kind of firing up there. I know they use the fire retardant. I'm just saying maybe it's like if you add a fire retardant, maybe use water. That's a guess on my end. The point being, it's either that or just like an epic shot, he's just kind of showing off a little for camera. It could either way. Point being,
or the epic shot, and I'm totally fine with that.
Either way, what I like about that is that, again, it's kind of a little bit of comedy, but at the same time, it's also a little foreshadow to kind of like a plane landing on the water. That's going to be kind of the crux at the very end of the movie. This guy always sounds like I had to double check this firefighter on the ground. He sounds so much like early Army.
Yeah. I had that same thing.
It is not him though, but it sounds identical to him in the start there. But speaking of actors who've been in Pixar movies, the wonderful Holly Hunter is in this film. Of course, Elastigirl, and I don't know what it is, Teague. I guess the formula for success is you get Holly Hunter in a movie with planes, and they have a big crux of it being her flying a plane. You know?
Oh God,
kind of a formula for success.
I think we've cracked the code on Holly Hunter, Dragon.
Yep. But don't make her a center. Make her a pilot.
Yeah, I love her in this movie. To me, she's got kind of like a Marion Ravenwood vibe going on with her. You know, that kind of like that spunky, tomboy who's not afraid to get feminine.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, she's again. Just forgive me if I'm just. I think the word of the day is going to be charm on this movie. This movie's just charming for days, and I think she is. She's a huge. She and John Goodman. For days. I mean, she and John Goodman really bring it. I'm gonna glow on John Goodman when we get into it, really. But what we're doing in the opening here, story wise, is we're establishing Pete as the rookie and kind of the hotshot hero. And I love how heroic he is, by the way. That really resonates even more on the rewatch, how quite heroic. Yeah, you think like, oh, make a cool plane spectacle, he's putting out fires, what he does. But he does things, he goes out of his way. He's not exactly showing off. He's doing things that are truly heroic that involves him showing off. So I love that delineation on a rewatch. It's really cool.
I mean, there's definitely a Han Solo vibe to this guy.
Yeah, a little bit more. Again, a little more. I part a little bit more humble, I guess, than Han Solo. Han Solo's a little bit more like he eventually buys into the cause, but eventually, again, what if you had the guys like built in, like like the beginning of Empire Strikes Back Han Solo? Like that's kind of what we got here.
Well, I mean, I specifically Empire Han Solo because we'd have the whole "I love you, I know" thing. That's why I bring up Han Solo.
Well, that's a good reason. Yeah.
So yeah, specifically Empire Solo.
So also in Act One, we have a lot of setup for the disaster and tragedy that's going to unfold at the end of Act One for our guy here. A lot of great setup. And that again, like he's basically kind of living on borrowed time to an extent, and all the chances that he takes, he's very lucky, and of course that luck will ultimately run out. And again, like we have kind of some misdirects here and there, like, oh god, I don't know if he's going to make it here.
Yeah, and this is the opening scene of the movie. The opening scene of this movie is just like a harrowing, like, oh my god, like he has to land with no fuel, and how is he going to get out of this?
Yep. And of course, I mean, if you know the cell line of this movie, he could just die at the start. We learn about him in the movie.
That's true. That's very true.
But again, the very little we knew about this movie is okay. Ghost pilot. That's all I knew about this movie.
Right. Yeah.
Ghost pilot romantic comedy. That's all I got.
Hey George, I got a pitch for you, George. Hit it with me, Steven. Ghost pilot. Sounds boring and dumb. Anyways.
Anyway, I love the. We also set up the Gary Owen whistling thing within the start here. So all the stuff that's gonna pay off. But importantly, she hears the whistling, so it's kind of setting up some stimuli that's gonna she'll be thinking of him when she hears when she hears Ted whistling. So again, we don't waste any time in this movie in establishing things. Basically, all the stuff that is established does have a payoff, and that's always something really good with movies.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Wing and a Prayer. The Wing and a Prayer plane, we see that. Kind of a little symbolic, it's all boys got to get a little bit of the spiritual context of the movie with the prayer, as well as just like, this guy, he's surviving on a wing and a prayer, and they're just kind of making it the last minute many a time.
Sure.
I was in the correlation to him, and I know he's not exactly with the Wing and a Prayer plane himself, because Wing and a Prayer, I believe, is the delivery service's name. It's kind of the main plane our other guy flies.
And that's one of the things I like about this movie is the kind of like the lingo that we have throughout it. That it very much gets you. Like I feel like Spielberg's really good at that, just getting you invested in the and kind of like the little details of a profession. You know what I mean?
Spielberg, he must have done some really great research on planes, because of course, I mean, Empire of the Sun, we have kind of the wartime planes. I'm sure definitely on the British side of what planes we flying on the Japanese side as well. So a lot of stuff there. We're definitely in kind of the American, just kind of like, again, I love that. It was a really interesting choice that again they didn't go for the World War II setting. They went with kind of the more they updated in that way. They went more like, again, kind of heroism on a different level. It's not just the thing you've seen 100 times before, because you rarely ever see a movie about this sort of thing. So, real quick in John Goodman. So, of course, this is a John Goodman. I want to keep it in perspective, take it. This is a John Goodman, kind of the infancy of Roseanne. There's maybe like a season or two of Roseanne.
Oh, yeah. This is early Goodman. Yeah.
I mean, John Goodman famously, and I still attest to this, and I've heard no argument against this, honestly, in my time. He's like, John Goodman's never given a bad performance. He's done some bad movies, but he's never given a bad performance. And I think this is a testament.
I would wager Evan Almighty.
But again, good performance, though.
Yeah,
I'm saying, I mean, he didn't disappoint. He didn't disappoint. I mean, oh man, all right, fine.
He's so one-dimensional in that movie.
Doesn't make him bad though.
Yeah.
Right, anyway, the point.
I Evan Almighty is just a god. What a shit show. Anyways, sorry, this is an Evan Almighty podcast.
The point being, he plays Al Yaki. He plays just kind of the confidant, the best friend, and of course, just the jovial guy. Oh man, John Goodman. It's not just he's not one note in this too. I want to make
Greg and I have a feeling that you and I have the same favorite moment with him, which is coming up pretty early on.
I kind of like all his moments, so we'll see.
Okay, there's a moment with him in a bar specifically where he's talking to Dreyfus.
That's a great scene. I love that.
Yeah.
There's all these holding the balloons too, just while they're driving. It's just like some great. Again, the Spielberg gets to kind of do some comedy here. Spielberg, and I'm not saying there aren't funny moments within Spielberg movies. I'm saying kind of approaching a comedy because again, all that 1941 trauma. He's usually very trepidatious of doing that, but we have a little bit of kind of some slapstick there, like the plane's coming down, she's trying to scare the crap out of him, like, oh god, it's like a little bit of broad comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So the crux of the film is, the uncertainty of others' safety, and then Pete in a helpless position, over Dorinda's actions. So I think that's that definitely pays off in Act 3, where again she gets in the plane, he's kind of worried about her, and of course vice versa. Even during the scene where it's like, is he going to land? Is he going to not land? So Pete is in a helpless position where again he can't necessarily give help. But he's going to be along for the ride in the later section of the movie, or in this case, he's going to be in a very precarious situation that, again, will ultimately cost him his life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that like all the high stakes stuff in this movie really do come in the first act. It's like, the movie really does have like an end all, like, okay, like that's, that is the ultimate like end all of this character. Like that's where he ends up. And we're about like a half hour in. Let's see where this goes.
Also,
well, no, I think we're more like an hour in when that happens, but I digress.
Right. Also, a little fun fact is when they're playing with the helium and doing the Woody Woodpecker thing. Of course, Universal owns Woody Woodpecker.
Mm.
Fun fact. It's so funny. This Spielberg month, we've had 3 Warner Bros. Movies, and we end on Universal again just by rolling the dice. For all I know, that could have been a Warner Bros. Movie. For all I know,
right. Could have been like MGM for all we know.
Yeah. Well, of course, pilots here. I think as we see in media many a time, pilots are a lively bunch. They love to hang out after they do their flying. It's the Fly Boys Club. They love to go to a bar and just kind of like hang out after a day's work. No matter what branch.
So back and forth. This whole like, oh, I don't want it. Take it. I don't want it.
Have you ever seen? I don't mean to put you in a spot here, but have you ever seen broadcast news?
No, I have not.
This is the thing, like this writing, this dynamic. This is like classic Holly Hunter. And at this point in time, like the big landmark thing she had done was broadcast news. That was I believe a James L. Brooks movie. It was a big one for her. So that's where you kind of see like that built-in dynamic. She had like that dynamic with Albert Brooks in that movie. I think it's really gotten her far in things. I think that kind of shows itself here. Where again, that's the built-in charm. She knows how to play off of an actor. Of course, I love when she does here too, and she just kind of gets really aggressive, like "Don't touch that." It's really playful, it's really fun and playful.
It's that side of her that kind of reminds me of like a Marion Ravenwood type, where it's just like it's like she's incredibly feisty.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, so here we go. This is a scene, right?
It's pretty much it starts here, and then it has like the I'm saying you mean the full duration of the scene starts here.
You know what this place reminds me of? That
whole thing, yeah. I'm saying like when the beer thing, because they have like interjection, then they pay off with the beer thing. But yeah, this is the scene, yeah.
All right, so I love the whole bit with the whole what this place reminds me of, the whole and it's interesting. It's a little bit morally ambiguous too. Like I don't necessarily know if I agree with Goodman's take on like the fact that it isn't a war means that the risks he's taking aren't worth taking. Of course, being someone who was actually extended family was affected by the fire, so it's like I'm like, well, I don't necessarily know about that. I consider firefighters some of the just like heroes, just generally. Like I know that sounds very cliche, but it's true. It's anyways.
Well, my read on it was that was the big kind of acknowledgement of, this is kind of based on. I tell you, I guess if you don't know, you're not going to be affected at all by it. But that to me seemed like the acknowledgement of this is not the World War II classic, and we've kind of updated here. But again, I like how they work that into kind of into a line of thinking here, where again it's like not again we're acknowledging kind of it's life or death stakes in a different capacity. I think we kind of transition where again we're not. I'm sure people be going this wondering like, okay, well it's a movie of planes, and you so rarely see the firefighting aspect of planes. Like the last time I can remember a movie about that was one of the Planes movies. I mean, literally the Disney ripoff of the Cars franchise, Planes.
Right.
We're literally talking about the crop dusters kind of into the ridiculous. fire and rescue. It's literally the last time I've ever seen something like that. Again, this is far superior to that. And here's the thing. I also really like how my little headcanon, I could be completely off here, not knowing anything about this. I always like to read that they're using the old planes from the war, like possibly the old bombers from the war, and they've repurposed them, at least repurposed the older ones into like the fire and rescue idea.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and that to me is like it's a clever take on the remake, right?
Just think of it, you'd have planes left over from the war that would no longer ideal. Again, as they bring out newer models and everything, you'd have them left over, and this is kind of like repurposing an older thing for kind of still a good cause. And I think it's kind of what the scene's kind of getting at here, where, is even if it's for a different cause, it's a worthy one. So there's a little bit of that worked in there, just kind of speaking to why basically this scene speaks to why Pete is so passionate about what he does. And that's kind of what we're getting at in this scene. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And also, we're kind of, again, in setting up the life or death stakes here, of course, it's going to play into Pete's thing. But also, again, it doesn't make us like Al any less. Like, we still love Al. It's putting in perspective.
I mean, yeah, if anything, it's just like you're right. It's more just kind of like a realism, like, hey, look, you're, like this is he's really kind of just laying out the thesis statement, if you will, like how he's affecting other people. It's like, I don't know.
Well, the real big plot takeaway is that he's also offering him the job here. He's offering him the teaching job, which of course he feels he has a lot left in him. He feels like, no, I can't settle down and just teach people how to put out the fires. I want to be in the thick of it. I want to put out the fires. Going to Colorado, going to Flat Rock,
right.
And also, I love what John Goodman in that scene did too, where it's just like he's just being really sarcastic. It's the John Goodman charm there, where he's just like Flat Rock, what kind of Flat Rock, and basically he says like, oh, I don't know, it's just a silly idea. Maybe they go to Flat Rock to have little fires to practice putting them out. Just really just wonderfully sardonic, but jovial. He's not like negative sardonic, he's like jovial sardonic, just playing with the guy. I don't know, it's great. Of course, we have Holly Hunter looking like a vision in her dress.
Okay, I want to bring this up to you really quick. I feel like in this day and age, the whole thing of like all the firefighters just like tumbling over themselves to dance with her, like, I mean, a little bit uncomfortable, yeah, maybe.
Well, again, look, at the time
maybe
it was
he's there, a little bit too much male aggression.
Today, yes, but we can't hold it.
Look, again, I'm purely playing devil's advocate on this thing, all right?
Of course, it is Spielberg just kind of playing with the old comedy trope of like again a little bit of slapstick, a little bit like they're kind of tumbling over each other, wash their hands so they can dance with the girl.
That whole bit reminds me of like the Seven Dwarves.
Yeah,
I love Dreyfus with the towels. Like, yeah, get your towels, boys. Oh wait, I'm sorry, that's later, right?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Right now they're about to everyone's about to kind of dive for the dance, so to speak. They're about to kind of charge at him, asking for the dance.
Yeah, and then Dreyfus is just like, yeah, get your towels, boys. Get your towels to dance with my wife,
girlfriend.
Sorry.
I'm saying it's kind of a big. It's kind of an important thing.
No, you're right. Because he hasn't said "I love you" yet. You're right. That is like, God, Dragon. If anything, I need to have more self-control about the whole "I love you" thing. Like, I wish I had the willpower to not say it sometimes.
Real quick, I always thought this is such a classy little. It's on a rewatch. Such a classy bit that he does here, where Dreyfus, he says, let's try like the movies, where he says, we don't have a song. And she implies that we do have a song when he doesn't know it. So he says, he basically tosses it over to the musicians. Says, well, I guess he'll know. It works in the movies. It's just such a great idea. Like, yeah, if you didn't know the song, hopefully the guy will know the song if you've danced there before. It's great. It's the classy little bit. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's a bit of background I held off. I want to talk about here. So they couldn't get the rights to the song Always.
Oh, really?
For this movie. And I have no idea. Here's the thing: always they do the classic thing where we name drop the name. It was somewhere in this sequence. You were basically, I believe it's when they toasted their drinks, and it's basically something like, "We'll be together like always." Something akin to that, basically.
And it's totally like oh, they did it! They said the title.
Precisely, and of course, also Ted
like
here.
That line's probably specifically put in there for the trailer.
Exactly. And that's the thing. The question is like, is that supposed to be where the "always" is coming in, or was the song that they're dancing to supposed to be the song "always"? I don't know. It's a question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Fanatic, of all things to call, again, we've seen this with some of the great movies of all time, like Up, for example. Up, that's such a hard title to sell. It's such a hard title to sell with such a wonderful movie. And of course, you have stuff like, of course, when I see "always," I'm thinking of like "forward," "always," the only direction of life that matters.
Oh God, of course you are.
Also, importantly, we saw Ted just now. Ted, again, wanting to dance, but he didn't. And again, he kind of a little bit of intersection.
Yeah, I really do like the very subtle foreshadows with Ted. I feel like that's really well done.
You gotta remember, Tiki, the most fascinating thing that this movie pulls off, Tiki, the most fascinating thing in the whole film is that we have two characters. We have a duo. We have Pete and we have Ted. And they can't interact at all. And that moment we just saw is the only interaction they have in the entire film. Where it's not even them interacting. Like, she sees Ted. Barely, he still doesn't even see Ted, really.
Right.
That's the point. Like, in the fact that these two characters, they somehow have to exude a connection and a chemistry without interacting.
You're right.
It's so ridiculously hard, yet I think it's pulled off quite well.
Dragon, it's such a hard sell of a premise, man. It really is.
Okay, I'm sorry. Now I'm seeing the towel poses for God. Dreyfuss is Spielberg is the director who's gotten the best out of Dreyfuss. I mean, he's to my knowledge, I'm trying to think if there's any more I'm just overlooking in the moment here. I mean, Dreyfuss, I think he's just done 3 movies with Dreyfuss. He's done Jaws, he's done Close Encounters, and he's done this. I mean, all 3 are excellent Richard Dreyfuss performances. I'm not saying Richard Dreyfuss is a bad actor, but there are movies, of course, famously, What About Bob, where a set can be really hostile with Richard Dreyfuss. That's nothing against him. I'm just saying it depends. There were factors at play that would hold rivalry between him and Bill Murray, and that's what I'm getting at. Sometimes Richard Dreyfuss, the project can alter the performance, and I feel Spielberg's gotten the best out of Dreyfuss, even on a production like Jaws, where again it's like, oh God, it's like everything is going wrong left and right. The shark is not working.
Right.
I mean, there's another really great movie I'd recommend to you and everybody at home with Dreyfuss that is not a Spielberg movie. One of the really fun comedies with Richard Dreyfuss. It's called Let It Ride. That's a fun premise too. It's a little it's not as inventive as this one, but it's quite fun. It's he basically plays kind of a down on his luck guy at the racetrack, and he places a bet, and he prays the god to let him win for a change. And basically the whole movie is kind of hinges on him. He has this lucky streak for the whole day, and it's a question like, will it run out? It's a great little movie with him. It's like he plays the desperate gambler, and it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And this is great here, a little bit of foreshadow where he's watching his girl dance with other guys, and again, from a distance and happy about her. So again, it's the fact that he's, again, from a distance with her dancing with another guy.
Still kind of happy about it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And again, from a distance. And of course, here we have a big scene with this wonderful blue lighting, which again will pay off with blue lighting between the two of them. I don't mean to just keep going off on foreshadow, but
no, I mean, honestly, that's what a lot of the first act is, really. I mean, there's not a lot you can do about it.
Yeah. Oh, let me pose you the devil's advocate here. Do you think the foreshadow is a little heavy-handed?
Not really, honestly.
I was just playing devil's advocate.
I just think that it's it's not subtle, but it's not. I don't think it's a bad thing that it's not subtle. I'm
just raising the issue. I'm just raising the question. All right. Weird thing, pilots love cats apparently. Cool observation of late with kind of movies about pilots. It's like they like cats. All right, so what do you think about this thing with the Dorinda character? This kind of shopping list in her sleeve. I think
it's a little cheesy, but it's fine. It's like I'm gonna wager like it leads to a good moment, man, and that's the thing is like I do feel like this movie has some excellent ways in which it explores a ghost character interacting with the living, and I feel like talking in their sleep is definitely an interesting route to explore that with. Honestly, my whole thing is like I wish it wasn't a shopping list. Like I feel like the shopping list thing just is like a weird, like quirky comedic beat that Spielberg put in there. And it should have been more of a like kind of just her generically like talking in her sleep. I don't know.
It's like it's endearing enough, but it's a little strange. I mean, the big thing I like about it,
like Spielberg wanted to get a big laugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, again, their chemistry's so good. Again, it kind of works, but you give it a pass because the chemistry's so good, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And the big thing the big takeaway,
especially because I like the payoff for the scene as well. That's the main reason I give it a pass.
You mean the haircut, or do you mean the ultimate one?
No, I mean the one where he's literally talking to her like while she's sleeping.
That's a good one. Right. That's the better one. I'm just saying that I like that the haircut thing gets put into play here because it's such kind of a great one. We have the big transition from life to death. It's through a haircut. So again, this is really some really well written, well conveyed dialogue here. Where it's the fact that I love these. Not just gonna be like the guy saying "I'm telling you no," but he instantly realizes, "But I mean, hey, I'll say no by asking you nicely." He's not. Again, he's worried about her because basically she's kind of throwing the it's not an ultimatum. Ultimatum is a poor choice of words, but she's kind of laying out the two paths here of like either she wants to take the same risk as him, or she wants to take the same risk as him by going in a plane herself to kind of put on equal footing, or to protect him, she'll settle down. Let's go to Flat Rock. You can still embrace your passion to fly. And you and I will, kind of live kind of the quiet life, and it'll be domesticated and everything.
Mm.
Whereas the stuff that she's doing with the water right now, that's pure broadcast news Holly Hunter right there. Just like using the stuff around. Because here's the thing, I initially saw, I was like, that's kind of a weird bitch just going for the water. But no, it feels like kind of like just kind of unsure of what to do. It feels like broadcast news Holly Hunter. It is.
Yeah, it's just there's so many good little beats with this thing along the way as we get towards the end of Act 1, where where the characters are just kind of like in this weird sort of like crossroads in their life where they've been with each other for a while, and I feel like the daredevil persona that was once kind of charming to her is really just draining on her because of the real world implications of it. You know what I mean? Now that she's clearly like attached to him and loves him, it's it's more of like isn't that guy charming and dangerous, and more of like oh man, that guy's dangerous and I don't want anything bad to happen to him. And it's kind of like it's a nice transitional phase in the relationship that is something that you would want to go back and fix if something untimely were to happen to you.
Absolutely. So I think the best thing that's conveyed in this film, I think the biggest standout thing to me that really kind of stuck with me is Spielberg plays with a lesson. I think the lesson of the movie is true love is letting go. True love is like basically eventually what he's going to be doing in the movie here. Where again the truest form of love is allowing them to move on after you're gone. Allowing someone even if you have to train your replacement, not only in profession but in love as well. Like that's the testament to if you truly love a person, you're going to make sure they're happy before you are. Even if it pains you, you're going to make sure they're happy. I think that's the biggest lesson in the movie: letting go, even if it hurts.
And Dragon, honestly, the whole premise of like, oh, Pete is a guardian angel sent to look after his widow's new boyfriend. Shenanigans, you know what I mean? It could have very easily gone down that road of just like sitcom, like, oh, well, you know what? you gonna mess with my girl, I'm gonna mess with you. And really beyond just like the whole like him trying to fast forward the tape to the song, you know, that's really the one bit where Pete does try and sabotage, right?
Well, no, I would argue the based on what happens when he's whispering to her in the dream, that's him trying to sabotage things. But I mean, you're right. The fast forward, he doesn't want it to happen, but it is happening. He's not really sabotaging. He's just he's kind of realizing that things are not going his way there. He's trying to sabotage you when he whispers to her in the dream.
Right, right.
At least that was my read on it. I mean, I could be wrong.
I mean, with the whisper in the dream, I kind of took that less as sabotage and more like him kind of like realizing, like, look, I need to set some things straight with you.
Well, we'll see how it breaks down when we get there. So of course, I want to point this out. This is kind of important getting to the Ted stuff too. Is where we set up in this conversation here two things. So one, we set up that he's very anti, becoming a teacher. You know, ultimately, of course, that's what he becomes in the sense of like he's kind of made a guardian angel and that he's going to be teaching whether he likes it or not.
Dragon, it's a classic Alan Grant arc.
Yes, yes it is. So I got to tell you, this to me is one of the sweetest bits between them in the movie. I mean, bear in mind the third act stuff obviously is gonna be some other contenders, but I mean the stuff I love is right here. Says, okay, listen, I have this crazy idea. I think we should go to Flat Rock, and he basically plays into exactly. They're having this really heartfelt conversation where it's a really intense thing, but he wants to be with her, so he will absolutely go with that, and he will make no qualms. But I love that. I just love it's such a beautiful moment where he just springs the news that is everything she wants to hear, and he's reveling. He's just kind of being playful with her, and that of course I'm gonna do whatever is best for the two of us. You know, I'm not gonna. It's just it's great. It takes a. Yeah, and I love that he takes the moment of change at the end of that. We're not at the end of Act 1 quite, but we're getting there. So I love that. At this point, he's taking the moment of change for a happy ending, and then of course, the minute he takes that,
one last big job, Dragon. The one last big job.
Yep.
And that's the thing with this movie being film school Spielberg is that it is laden with like screenplay structure. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to call them cliches, but they are very much like kind of like tentpole tropes.
Yep. But I love that though. I love that in Act 1 we give him the happy ending way too early, and again we're kind of going from okay, well, oh my god, if we gave him the happy ending, then of course we literally blew that up. So what now? What movie are we? I mean, again, that's like filmmaking at its best capacity. If you're so involved, maybe like a big dramatic way of ending the act, and you're kind of wondering, well, where do we go from here? If you're going to this movie for the first time, not knowing anything about it, just always, what the heck is that? It's like, well, what do we do? Hold them off. What do we do? I mean, there's no way to survive that thing. He's just walking around.
An example I can think of something like that is The Place Beyond the Pines. Did you ever see The Place Beyond the Pines?
No.
Yeah, basically they pull like a big Act 1 switcheroo of like, oh man, oh shit, this is not what I thought that movie was about. All right, anyways.
Of course, Spielberg must have a thing for bikes post-ET.
Bikes and planes.
Yep, and automobiles. No, I'm kidding. But it's more George Lucas's thing for American Graffiti. But anyway. Of course, here's where we have kind of the Empire Strikes Back moment. I love you. I know you do, Dorinda. I wonder if that's Spielberg maybe kind of. I mean, just that's so literally kind of verbatim, and you know the guy. I gotta wonder if maybe that's like a little nod to.
I'm sure it is, Dragon. I'm sure it is, especially given the time period.
Yeah. You gotta remember, even with Star Wars, of course, there's a lot of like they're both kind of pulling from like the obviously when they're storyboarding Star Wars, they use the World War II footage and kind of the dailies, and maybe not the dailies, and kind of the storyboards of what was going to happen, the animatic, the animatic of the day, I suppose, and of course there's a lot of DNA of like kind of classic World War II era stuff as well as kind of movie serials and everything built into the new Hollywood generation. They love the old stuff, and I think a lot of it kind of permeates their works in many ways, shapes, and forms.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I do love Fire Eaters, by the way. It's like that's the name of it's the thing they put on the planes. Fire Eaters. Kind of.
All right, I caught this on a rewatch. The fact that he's yelling that he loves her, and he's just kind of like laughing it off, like, "Oh, that silly girl! I'm trying to say it, and the one time I'm saying it, she's not listening to me." And you know, and that's going to be, of course, a huge dramatic part of the movie is the whole "I love you" thing.
Yeah, we set up the unfinished business. Again, we're hitting all of our major story points in Act 1 like gangbusters here. Like, it's like we set up the unfinished business. He's saying "I love you." We don't know, but we don't know it means that much because again, it's just he's laughing it off, so it's perfectly fine. So you know, when it comes into play, it's not coming out of left field like you have unfinished business. What? You know, I'm not doing any of that. Very tragic as well. So here's, and this is the thing that really jumped. I know it was there in the first watch. It really sunk in with me on the rewatch that, you know, his last action on Earth was saving his best friend.
Yeah, oh yeah,
was saving Alan. I mean, it was so. I mean, the thing that really struck me too with all this was that, as we're going to see with Al here, Al was going to be in a very desperate situation. The way John Goodman plays that, the way John Goodman plays, like he knows he's not coming back, and he's just trying to be kind of a little light about it. But it's like you see. I love that.
And I was in such a good mood.
Yeah, it's going to sound so simple, but it's like, I love that we have like the heat, the sweat, and the condensation on the cockpits. We do that, and it makes you, I mean, you yourself, the audience member, are sweating on the end of your seat, like, oh God, I mean, I hope they're going to be okay. I hope they're going to make it out of here. Because like when the plane,
yeah, you know what I was legitimately thinking? I was like, wait a minute, I thought Richard Dreyfuss was the one who died, not John Goodman.
Well, he's on the poster. There was a pilot.
John Goodman too. Like I was legitimately like concerned for him. Like this does look like a very harrowing situation. I was sucked in.
This is just very well shot too, by the way. By the way, in some of the, I think it was during the earlier sequence, I don't know exactly where, but they actually used stock footage from the Yellowstone fires in '88 during some of those fires. I don't know if it was like just for the, I assume it was mostly in Act 1 when he's like kind of in the background of the plane when Pete was helping put out the fires from earlier. I think that was the Yellowstone footage, but it could be in the third act, you know, when the big fires raging on, maybe. One of the two. Of course, nowadays people get really up in arms when you use footage of natural disasters in movies. So I mean, I guess it's kind of a then versus now thing too. And again, I love just the heroism here, where again it's the fact that Pete is doing a very dangerous thing right here, where again he's trying to time the the fire retardant on top of the fire as well as on top of his friend's engine there, so he can save him, so the engine doesn't explode and kind of get his fuel on here. In doing so, of course, he kind of takes on the same engine issue, which basically it directly hits the fuel tanks. And I love how small it is too. If you really look at it, just think about how quick this happens. He kind of looks at like the little fire on the tiny little flame on the fuel tank, and he kind of smiles, and then boom.
Oh yeah.
And again, the thing that really strikes me,
life.
And again, the thing that just gets me is just, again, I'm just going to go on
Goodman's reaction.
Goodman's reaction, man. Goodman's reaction is what kills me. It's like, oh God, and again, it's the condensation in the water and how intense it feels inside the cockpits of these planes here, and just like how like the frosted glass and everything just feels like really just closed, and it feels uncomfortable, and I like it uncomfortable in the proper sense. Like, you know, it's like you've been through a harrowing experience as the audience member, as these guys have.
Mm-hmm.
It was little details go a long way, folks, when they're done right. And here we go. So he's just kind of made by the seat of his pants. Again, seemingly he survived. Seemingly he came out unscathed, where he would have crash landed, and he didn't.
Yeah, that's the messed up thing about this, Dragon. That's the messed up, like true to life, like random happenstance. It's like look at this. It's just like, oh, that lucky son of a bitch, and he's just like, all right, I'm flying, and
right here, it's like he's about to see the little flame on the engine coming up here.
Yeah.
Oh God, that right there. This is a little laugh, a little interrupted. Tries to smiles it off, says, "Hey, check this out." Then boom! Oh my goodness! I mean, this is the dying on a rough quality right here. That we have a big moment like this, and that's
oh, it's huge, yeah.
Oh
it's
God!
Like, walked into this knowing nothing about the movie. It's like it'd be a huge shocker.
I love Goodman. Not only is he funny, not only is he charismatic, not only is he great, but he also brings the drama in the movie. I love that, because even John Goodman, if you were playing, I'm not going to say one note, but even if John Goodman was just playing kind of like a specific type of character, if basically, let's say we had a John Goodman role where he doesn't do a lot in the movie, we would still have him committing to what that role is. But here we get like a really great three-dimensional layered character where it wasn't necessarily required, but it added to it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So he could have just been the comic relief who maybe had like somewhat of a dramatic moment, but no, he brought a lot of. Again, we
Like
have
Philip Seymour Hoffman and Capote.
yeah, he could have.
Or I'm sorry, not Capote, in Patch Adams.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, he brings a lot more than that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
All right, so we got to talk Audrey Hepburn.
Yes, I have some really interesting stuff on Audrey Hepburn.
Go for it. Go for it.
Okay, so first of all, I love him just kind of walking casually through like the deforestation, through like all the damaged forests, just through all the burnt wreckage. He's a really great chest, kind of an average Joe's kind of taking a stroll through there, and it will lead us to Audrey Hepburn, who has like this luscious patch of like kind of grass and like this really kind of heavenly little environment amongst all this, which is just a great kind of like setting for like the interaction between Audrey Hepburn. So Audrey Hepburn's character. She always wanted to work with Spielberg, and coincidentally, when the Spielberg and the way the story goes, that Spielberg and Dreyfuss, the way Dreyfuss tells the stories, that the two of them were. You got to remember, Dreyfuss is a really good storyteller, so he could have fabricated this a smidge, but it ends up in the same route here, where they're saying, well, we need kind of a voice of God, kind of angel of God type character, and they both looked to each other and said, Audrey Hepburn. And also with Audrey Hepburn, so she coincidentally she always wanted to work with Spielberg, and she wanted to work with Spielberg so much, in fact, that her role, reportedly her role, she got paid $1 million for her role at the time, a lot more than it would be today. I'm sorry, a lot more than it would be today. So she $1 million role, and she donated the whole thing to UNICEF, $1 million, because she just wanted to work with Spielberg. And also, this is Audrey Hepburn kind of near the end of things, too. This is the last, she retired after this role, and like 5 years later, she passes away. And I'd like to think, optimistic, I like to think she passed away fulfilled with, their film career with this. I thought this is a really good role for it. It's again, Spielberg has been lucky to work with some of the greats in his line of work. And of course, this feels like kind of like you get to work with Audrey frickin' Hepburn. And she wanted to work with you, and she kind of went on a high note in that regard. Kind of a nice little celebration of Hollywood in the movie, as well as celebrating like one of the old Hollywood movies. So that's kind of cool.
So I like that Dreyfuss doesn't necessarily have that routine comedic like freak out, like, oh no, I'm dead. He accepts it with dignity. You know what I mean?
He does. And I love how pleasant he is too, where he's just saying, look, I don't want to question your faith or anything, but again, just because Dreyfuss, as we know, Dreyfuss he can play broad very well. Where he can be going out of his mind, just kind of shouting all over the place. We saw Close Encounters. He can be. He can go all over the place. Again, there's a tendency to go all over the place. And here though, he's just playing it just really. It's just playing it really pleasant and really just again, it's like he's treating Audrey Hepburn with class. And it's just kind of processing. And again, so I love just how kind of otherworldly it is, where you're getting a haircut from essentially an angel or kind of a mediator of God of some variety, like kind of the angel of death for all we know. Takes it all in very well. But again, seriously, I can't get over the vision.
What do you think of the whole 6-month thing?
I love that idea, and I have a little headcanon for when we do this again later on. I love the idea that time passes. That basically the whole idea that heaven and like the afterlife and the afterlife or the purgatory, whatever you want to call it, the afterlife and the other world kind of work on a different time frame. And we do these really wondrous editing tricks, like she removes the little cover. And we bring like this vast field. I mean, we have moments like this that kind of speak to like, okay, well, I can buy the way we manipulate time. We can do stuff like that easily.
Yeah, I love the idea. I honestly feel like I'm not saying the movie is less for it, but I feel like the movie could have, if they wanted to, they could have gone even more heady with it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, basically, once we establish a certain rhythm with the movie, it is just kind of like Dreyfuss following characters around. But I don't know. It's like I feel like if they want, like, wouldn't it be crazy if instead of like being a year, it was like the story took place over 5 years, but it still felt like the same amount of time to Dreyfuss?
Sure. I mean, what I'm really impressed with is that we didn't do like the usual stuff where he goes to his own funeral, he sees the mourning process.
Oh yeah, sure.
I like so rarely in movies. At many times movies, when you do a time jump, bad things can happen. Fantastic Four 2015 being, and Four Stick being a prime example. But here we go essentially 6 months to roughly a year. Like overall for them a year has passed. I mean, it's been 6 months for him, but it's whichever. Point being, 6 months later to again it's kind of a new status quo he's walking into, where again it's like he can kind of pick up where Dorinda and Al are, and of course they have this Ted character who again is kind of coming back after we just have these little fleeting moments with him early on. So it's all. Plus, we introduce a few new characters and the whole shebang, like the new pilots that kind of help him out, with new characters that are in that Ted meets at the start of things. It's all relative. It's all nice.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get over the visuals here. I mean, this is kind of walking through a field of visuals.
It very much reminds me of Tomorrowland.
Yeah, a little bit of there's a lot of Tomorrowland, maybe a little bit of Field of Dreams. Yeah. So it's a really interesting idea, like how guardian angels work. By the way, I'm gonna rewatch the dialogue. It's even more interesting, like how exactly they explain this concept. Because
I love the rules here. I you know me, Dragon. Like rules are one of my favorite things to establish in fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Like anytime you have rules, like it just makes everything feel more grounded, and this is a great use of that.
And the rules are simple enough because obviously this is the biggest. This is always the most dicey part of any kind of like piece where you infer the afterlife, and Spielberg having a take on the afterlife as well. It's like you have all the, how religious do we want to get? How many how exactly do we want to convey this? There's a lot of ways this could have gone wrong or gone schmaltzy or gone your love is what's brought you alive. It could go south many ways, and it did, because the very simple idea is that when those moments where you don't know if you're going to make it. You had a guardian angel in the cockpit, and the idea is like all the lucky pilots before you were guardian angels, and that's what you had before you. My own headcanon, I like to think that Spencer Tracy was his guardian angel. That's what I like.
Oh my God, that's great.
And basically, it's a continuing cycle where the idea is like if Ted ever dies, then he will be the guardian angel to the next pilot. Again, if you ever have a lucky moment in a cockpit, that a pilot is most likely what did the job there. I mean, it's basically it's keeping a goodwill sort of thing going. I thought that was really cool. Of course, the rules here too. So, of course, in the direction, it's really great. And again, you could say maybe it's a budget thing, but I like to think it's a stylistic choice that he never walks through it. We don't do the ghost trope where he walks through.
Dragon, I absolutely think it's a stylistic choice. I mean, I think Spielberg consciously wanted to make this a ghost movie that didn't have any of the traditional ghost, shtick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the usual tropes. And also, by the way, I love this sign really, again, it reads so much. Folks, this is definitely a movie you want to rewatch if you want to get the full effect and all the fun of this movie. Is that you get to see the full range of his powers too, where again he can suggest things. Again, he's not having to he can't directly. Some people he can directly influence more than others, as we'll come to learn. But he says, "I think you have a silly face." It feels like kind of like a voice in the air, like a ghost, like a guy over your shoulder. And he kind of looks in the mirror. He kind of thinks, he kind of gets a little self-conscious. And the idea again, the vague power of suggestion that's going on there. That's really clever bits like that are all throughout the writing of this thing. A part of me wishes maybe they did a little. I'm not saying they didn't do enough with it. I'm just saying I loved it so much I could have seen more with it.
Yeah, I hear you.
And that's the thing also I want to mention. So Flat Rock, Colorado. So they shot this. So again, they say Flat Rock, Colorado. I don't believe they actually went to Colorado. They mainly shot the movie in Montana. Mainly when they're flying, I assume it's Montana. And when we're on the base here, the base is in Washington. So it's an airport in Washington, or like an air base in Washington. All right, so here we're reuniting with Al, and this is the kind of clever stuff I'm talking about here, where we have we have some Spielberg again taking a stab at comedy here with the old motor oil gag. Or the idea is like on an airbase, the airbasing mechanics have oil and pilots have oil and all over their hands all the time. It's always kind of a filthy work environment. You're always going to get gunk on your face, and now just kind of having the old shaving cream gag 24/7 essentially. And this is what I'm talking about. Look at the power of suggestion. Him just suggesting that there's an itch there is now manifesting an itch. It's like the voice like a little whisper in the back of his head telling you that you have it's like a tick is laying eggs in there, man.
Right.
Just having fun with his buddy here, essentially, and of course the little Chaplin mustache gag too.
God.
Or the like Hitler mustache, whichever way you want to look at it.
I'm gonna like this job.
Again, this is the Richard Dreyfuss kind of this is Richard Dreyfuss the way I love him, man. I love him just kind of this jovial guy and still being the really high strung guy. I mean,
jeez. Tell me more about how much you don't like Close Encounters.
No, I didn't mean that way. I meant
no. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
I came out wrong.
No, I know. It's fine.
Again, I like that we're just kind of taking the old like, we give him a mustache gag and we kind of let it to. He set the guy on fire, and your whole job is to put out fires. And again, imagine this most embarrassing thing to happen to you on your first day, where you can't put out the fire. And we have this this hilarious line by John Goodman here, where he says, "It's okay, probably a crosswind over the trash can." That line is so funny. Yeah, I like how nice he's trying to be. He's trying to brush him off.
Give him a chance, ow!
A lot of fun. Again, it's just thinking the way it's not like a superpower, but again, it's like a little parlor trick. Those works.
Yeah.
So two familiar faces who are also in the movie, and we saw him kind of looking with the window at the rest of the crowd. Keith David's in this movie, man.
Oh yeah, nice.
He plays Powerhouse. He plays the one who's he kind of buddies up to Ted, and he's the one with the plane that gets hijacked by the end.
Right. Oh, that's David who got hijacked. I didn't even know. Nice.
I mean, yeah, Keith David's he's the one that she steals the plane from. Yeah. And I love one. I think this is very well constructed here in terms of our shots here. We line up here. It's just a very simple idea, and this is where we kind of see the complacency that Pete was worried about. He was worried about, he's worried about just kind of being a guy on the sidelines, just kind of watching people do this very thing. But Al lives for this sort of thing.
It's Scott Goodman, man. It's like give the guy a fruity beverage and he's good to go.
He's got a beverage. He's got like a number of snacks. He's got, and what I love with the shot here is we have this over the shoulder shot when the plane's good. And it's the perfect way of summarizing what's happening here. Where he's judging their progress if they can put out the little fire, and it's over his shoulders, everything is in one shot. I love that. Love that framing. Mm-hmm. Also, it's not since Iron Giant have I seen this inventive a Twinkie eating.
Oh God!
You had the Super Twinkie in you had the Super Twinkie in Iron Giant, where basically you have you overstuff it with the whipped cream, and here we have just drinking it with a straw.
Oh God!
Look at this framing here. That's great framing.
Yep.
So this not to sound too much it's almost in a Ratatouille. I don't forget all the Pixar references, but we have John Goodman and Holly Hunter in one movie. But. Almost like Ratatouille. I love how we kind of established the rules of how we're gonna frame shots with our two characters, and where one's a ghost and the other one is a real guy. Where we have living versus the afterlife here. We're almost like Remy under the hat of Linguini. We have Pete kind of squished into the cockpit, and that's how the original movie did it too. Where basically you have Spencer Tracy sitting behind the Ted character of that movie. I want to say these are supposed to. I don't know for certain. I want to say they're maybe single-seater planes, and he's just basically they carved it out for him to be in these scenes.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know that verbatim.
Supernatural quality to it.
Yeah, I'd like to think that's the case, but I don't know. And I love this here too, by the way, where Al basically he takes this with a grain of salt. He's kind of laughing at I can't believe this is happening right now. He's a little jovial about it. Of course, he has to take him to the woodshed later because this is a big problem if they're screwing up this badly on the first day. This is nuts. It's look at that jovial. It's I can't believe that.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Of course, here I believe they're all singing "Pennies from Heaven" here, and of course, basically celebrate the guy who it's like messing with the training officer in the military, pretty much. Oh man, you made him look silly. They're worshiping the new guy. There's Keith David on the left there. Yep. Probably one of the youngest times I've ever seen Keith. Probably the youngest I've seen Keith David. I love this reveal of Al here. He's we remove the sunglasses. Look at the scale we give him. We see the power and just the intimidation of the teacher here. Just when he literally puts his foot down. But again, we're having fun with it. But then again, John Goodman, he's illustrating the stakes here. And again, what's really great about this, Tiki, is that after losing his friend, again, this is the benefit of the 6 month time jump here, where he's his friend saved his life at the cost of his own life, and that sobered him a little bit. He's taking things a little bit more seriously. Don't get me wrong, he's kind of relaxing while he can when he's doing the teaching. He has to view the product. He's just having fun while he's doing it. But what we're doing here is he's illustrating the stakes of like life or death, and the fact that people are going to depend on you, and if you can't put out like a little fire, a tree can, he's really taking them to the woodshed here. Like, trees can lay up like Roman candles.
Trees go up like bombs. They go up like Roman candles. It's like, yeah, you're right. He gets really intense with it.
And again, not for a moment do I think it's not because he cares about their well-being as well as other people's well-being, especially after the reality check that he had 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderfully layered. There's a whisper of Pete there.
I didn't come all this way to inspire a quitter.
Yep. Okay, so I gotta mention her too. So we have Marge Hellenberger here on the left playing Rachel. Now, of course, Marge Hellenberger, she is wonderful on CSI. She played Catherine on CSI for many years, and that's one of her landmark roles she did for a number of years. It's quite refreshing to see her pop up in things now again. This again being probably the youngest I've seen her in something, so it's quite nice. I really liked. It's a brief character. I got to tell you, I found her really likable. What about you? The one always chasing them.
One of those examples of Spielberg doing side characters and giving them like little quirks, and it's like they could easily just be like, hey, yeah, it's the other female at the office, but no, it's like she's got her own quirky personality all the same. You know what I mean?
I mean, I thought it played so well. I mean, I could have seen him going for her very easily. I thought,
I could have. Yeah.
Again, I would argue again that Spielberg knowing what story he's telling so well that again maybe the audience will think that we're going this direction. Of course, we're going to go completely the opposite direction where he has eyes for the other girl. Where you think, oh, it's going to be okay. The whole movie's okay. Every time, basically, this movie is chock full of matchstick moments in terms of plotting, and I love it. Where you have a moment where okay, you think, so he's survived. He's not going to die right here, and of course, every time he looks, he's coasting on fumes.
Oh shit! Yeah, he's very, very dead.
He's coasting on fumes of love. Sorry, not love. Darn it! He's coasting on fumes of luck throughout the movie. Where you think he's a goner, and then of course he survives until he doesn't. And now we're at moments where we think the movie's going one way. Okay, well now he's a ghost. How do we roll with that? Now he's a ghost, and now it's gonna be a ghost helping a man fall in love, but not with that girl. Of course, we have the olive gag here, basically, where again he's kind of influencing him just a little bit here with like the old olive gag where he just like tells him like yeah. Tells him there's a like a little bit like it tells him to order like a fancy drink with an olive, and of course he orders the root beer now with an olive. Just the little things, really. Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me okay?
Apparently delayed, but I can.
There might be
delayed, but I can hear you. Hopefully it'll sort itself out.
Okay, for sure. Just checking. So, Dragon, I gotta say, I do find it very relatable that this Ted character had like a fleeting moment with a girl, and he's like trying to recapture that. He's trying to get back to that, and it's I gotta tell you, man, I'm kind of like one of those sick romantic types myself, where it's like like I kind of chase after moments like that, and I try and make something out of them, and. So I do like Ted a lot. Like I do think that Ted gets sidelined in the third act, and we'll get to that. But I really like him in the second act. I think he's a great foil to Dreyfus.
It's funny at first glance. You know which actor I thought this guy was from a distance.
Oh God, who?
Josh Brolin.
He does kind of look like a young Josh Brolin. I can.
That's
see
the thing. It's kind of like
I can see it.
Yeah.
God.
Of course, I mean, part of me thinks he's crazy for not, for not pursuing Rachel, but by the same time, I mean, Holly Hunter is quite adorable. So I can't.
It's like Rachel is kind of like the, the one that's right there, but you want to go for the challenge, Dragon. You want to go for the unobtainable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. So here we enter. Basically, this is how we re-enter Dorinda into the story. Where Al's on a mission here. Now Al's on a kind of a mission of he's trying to help his friend. Basically, he's moved on in a place, and Dorinda has not. He's trying to help his friend move on along with him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love all the cute pilot nicknames too. By the way, all the cute like in a call sign.
Well,
like
that's what I pointed out earlier with the pilot lingo. You know, it's like it feels very lived in.
He's like calling them a little quarter pounders. Oh god, it's funny though.
Dragon, I got to run downstairs really quick and grab another Red Bull. All right, I'll be right back.
All right. So right now we have the old Dan Aykroyd SNL sketch with I believe Julia Childs. Yeah, and of course Julia Childs too. Just I'm assuming they're kind of I remember Julia Childs was big in the '80s. I'm sure she had to be big in the '80s. That's why we keep referencing her so much. Like in Gremlins 2, you reference her. I know it's not necessarily in the '80s, but the point still stands. It's just the fact that we we do like, I guess because we do some cooking comedy. I don't know if they're foreshadowing the cooking comedy with Julia Childs or like, I might be overemphasized. Sometimes just the joke is sometimes just the joke, folks. Maybe it's not all like they're setting up Julia Childs for that reveal later on. The fact, we have like a turkey, a chicken gag, vice versa. Maybe this gets her the idea and they're eating chicken. The fact that, I don't know, it could be reading way too into it. But this is a nice, this is a nice quiet scene between the two of them, kind of reconciling the friendship. And me, the audience member, the first time thinking like, okay, I mean, just going into it fresh, before I found out the whole Ted has eyes for a thing. A part of me is thinking, I don't know, maybe they have a thing going on. Maybe again, I didn't put a lot of stock into it. I wondered though. Then we see he's trying to get her to move on. He's trying to get Dorinda out of her funk, like he eventually got out of his funk. He's moved on from the loss of his friend. Again, he's him embracing the life that was saved, and that's the thing, that she has the unfinished business that's kind of tethering her to the past. So essentially, what's about to unfold here is, it's an example of excellence in dramatic acting by John Goodman here. Again, we have him just initially as kind of the casuals, kind of nice guy that John Goodman always plays, and he's just kind of the friend hanging out. He's kind of doing his thing, but then things really amp up where, again, he has to kind of shake her out of her apathy, or kind of shake her, and like he has to. It's tough love, but it's tough love coming from the heart in the best of places. Here, we're just kind of like he's yelling at her as he's going to the closet, packing up her things, saying, "You need to move on. What you're doing right now is BS. You got to stop this." Yeah. I mean, like right here again, it's just wonderful dramatic acting, and again, it's acting in the sense of, again, you want to. Again, he's not like ordering her to do things, but he's just trying to, like, he's honestly just trying to share his grief and just trying in a way that will also get her to kind of process her own grief that she hasn't processed. And we wonderfully set up earlier in Act 1 where the idea is like, she and Pete were half right in that she would miss him, and they both kind of agreed that she said she would move on, and he said, you would miss me too much. You would never move on. You never miss me. And the truth lies in the middle of both of those points. And the character arc is for her to get is basically for her to fulfill what she said, and for Pete to and vice versa with Pete. That's kind of what we're looking at here. Where, again, she has not moved on. That's her big handicap that she needs to get over in the movie. And this right here, so Ted, so basically, I guess Pete and Ted, they're basically trying to, sorry, I believe this is the point here where we have, basically Ted's a little bit more confident now in the eye. It's questionable either Pete's kind of influencing some confidence on Ted here to eventually just kind of be the go-getter that he is, talk to Al, get your job back, do that stuff, go for it. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm jumping ahead here. I'm thinking of the later scene. I'm going to put a pin in that, I guess. Because right now we have Pete seeing Dorinda again. So now he's, the love of his life has flown back into his life. And I love that on Dreyfuss's face, you can kind of see him processing what he's really left behind. Because, again, he's kind of hanging out with his friends. He just isn't quite putting together. It's someone you can see but never touch. It's almost like the Heart of Ice effect. Love that you can see but never touch, but it doesn't make it any less real. So I believe I've only seen if I'm putting it together correctly here. So again, we're flying into a storm with these guys, and I forget if it's because it's part of the delivery service job or the idea is he's on the base, and initially he's flying home before he is told to turn back. So I believe right now Ted's kind of running away with his tail between his legs right now. I think that's what's happening. And as this happens, it's like Dorinda enters the base, and Ted leaves the base.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
We're flying into the storm. One could say storm's coming.
There's a storm coming, Mr. Wayne. All right.
The idea is, I believe, is that Ted is kind of running with his tail between his legs after he's kind of botched it in front of the boss, and as he's done that, Dorinda has re-entered the base, and kind of Pete got a kind of caught a glimpse of that here. He's kind of it kind of hits him for the first time that it's a love that he can see but never touch. It's pretty much what I was getting at.
So I'm sorry, I literally just watched this movie, but what's the context for this storm?
Well, the context for the...
I feel dumb. I don't even remember a storm in this movie.
Well,
I watched it.
God. I think the storm's supposed just to be like, we need to get him to stop, and it's the idea like the storm's hitting, he can't fly in the storm, so he needs to be kind of bunkered down in a place where he's going to get kind of the basically the confidence boost to go back to the base. That's the reason for the storm. That's the plot reason for the storm. No, it's just it's just.
Oh, okay, I see. So basically, the storm is just like there to delay Dreyfus, essentially.
Yeah, delay Dreyfus and get Ted again. To give Ted the pep talk.
Right. Okay.
Again, right now, just to reemphasize again, Ted again, he's going home. Presumably, it's to do with the air delivery business that he already has going on. It's pretty much what he's going back to do, and this stops him from just going on and doing that. This interaction he's about to have with our homeless man, with our hobo. So of course,
again, man, I love all the interactions with the between the living and the dead, man. It's so creative to me. We have this, we have the dream, we have the guy who's near death, later on, the bus driver.
That's my favorite moment in the movie, by the way. We'll get
I love all these sorts of, it's stuff that like you never see in ghost stories like this, where it's like just these very subtle, it's not about scaring you, it's not about having some sort of like visceral experience. If anything else, it's more like a feeling and a hunch, and I think this movie really illustrates that beautifully.
Yeah, I love that essentially hobos essentially hobos function as a dodgy radio for guardian angels. That's the idea.
Yeah.
And of course, I love that we kind of take
sentence when you lay it all out like that. But yes, hobos function as dodgy radios. But anyway.
It's a clever idea, though.
I'm sorry, I'm just being silly.
It is a logical logic, though.
Think about it. It does sound rather like weird when you break it down like that.
Again, so does the movie's premise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, what I love about what's basically unfolded, it's a really smart joke for a misunderstanding. I love, I've watched Frasier. Misunderstanding comedy can be really great, when it's done right. I think it's an example of it here where I just love Richard Dreyfuss saying, "No, it's not what I'm saying." He's just basically making things worse for himself. Now, I think there's a question of like how much of that is pre-ordered.
How much I don't like dill pickles.
Oh God, that's an example of bad misunderstanding. No, but I like that. I wonder if there's like a liar rule of thumb applied to this with the logic of the world here, where a part of me wonders if there's just like a possible preordained reason to why that goes wrong. I wonder if I wonder if again we have to remember he has to avoid being selfish in how he's manipulating things here. And I wonder if again that's like when he's not able to correct him when Dorinda's brought into the fray. And I wonder if that's the reason he can't fix that is because again he can't interfere. If that's like the preordained your purpose there is to help this man fall in love with your girl. I wonder. So literally speaking of which, literally he's about to crash into Dorinda's life. With the follow me gag. Okay. I love here's what I thought was really classy too, where where Pete just points out, I think we're being a little gullible here. That line is so great because it basically addresses, yeah, this is silly, but you know what, we're calling ourselves on it, so we'll let it pass. Because like Ted should not be should not just go with follow me here. I mean, if he's seeing his words leading, but it's funny. They really need to get that thing fixed. I mean, there's no reason that it just should have gone haywire as it did. It's like every time she's away from the thing, it goes off on its own. I mean, look, there's not having a brake on, but then there's like driving on its by itself. I love that I'm sorry, I'm picking up on this just in the moment here. A big runner through the movie, like by the very end of it, says, that's my girl and that's my boy. And right now it's just kind of like
picking up on that.
No. What I'm saying is like right now, I know he said my boy, but I'm saying I love it's kind of like in like a derisive way. It's like that's my boy, so that's my guy. In fact, he's just kind of taking a pot shot at his guy, like, yeah, he's still got a way to go.
Yeah.
Versus later on, he's going to be like oozing with pride for his boy. One could say he's
proud of his boy. Proud of his boy.
There you go.
Oh God! Speaking of which, Dragon, do we have any Spielberg daddy issues in this movie? I think very
well.
Few.
In the background, I told you the daddy issue stemmed from the military experience with his father. That's where again the inspiration came from. The reason he loved the movie this is based on is because of that.
But I mean, like, there's no divorced parents in this movie. There's no like father who abandoned any characters. Like, I mean, like as far as daddy issues are concerned, honestly, the closest thing we have is Dreyfuss kind of being. I wouldn't even say Dreyfuss is a father figure to.
I mean, here's the thing: the closest thing you have to a father figure thing is the fact that he says, "That's my boy," and again, of course, it gets creepy when you think, "That's my boy," and that's my girl.
Right.
But I mean, that's the closest. It's my boy in the loose sense, and that in terms of like he's mentoring him, that's a vague kind of father-son connect. But again, mostly just the planes and the rescue of it all.
So my point is, like, surprisingly for a movie this personal, like there's very, very few daddy issues in this movie.
But again, for it being as personal as it is, so he has like more of a behind the scenes daddy issues.
Because all the best cowboys have daddy issues.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Anyway,
that's that Lost fans will appreciate.
And of course, this is really sweet. They got a lot of sweet romantic dialogue with Dragon.
I love this thing. I really do. I love how Holly Hunter is just kind of like staring out into the distance. I love how yearnful Dreyfuss is in his performance.
I don't know if it's just us, but this doesn't come across as schmaltzy at all.
No, really, it doesn't. I mean, it's not that it's not like. I mean, I don't know the word for it, but it's not cheesy. It's not schmaltzy. I mean, it's certainly like romanticized.
I mean, that's probably the best way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Of course, ultimately, he's going to have the daunting realization that he's training. Again, I just love that it feels so potentially soap opera, but we actually made it legitimate here because Dreyfuss is playing it so genuine that you come to realize you're training your replacement on Earth in every capacity. It's just such a heady idea for the story. Again, Spielberg tackling the afterlife, man. This is stuff that gets me excited for like Pete Docter doing a movie on souls. It's like just really.
Oh yeah. Oh, totally.
Like right here, like this moment here.
I love that cut. That's fantastic.
And that to us, the audience, is the big indicator that okay, this is not just going to be a comic misunderstanding. This is going to be okay. This is going to be a big crux of the movie here. Where it's like, yeah, he's training his replacement. Or at the very least, maybe that's where it really starts, and then we're gonna have the big moment later on where they're dancing. That's where we have the serious dawning on them. But we don't spend too long getting there. We have like the bus. We have the bus, and then we get to that scene. So we don't take too long like basking the whole oh boy shenanigans. Like, there's no shenanigans. Like a hint of shenanigans.
Surprisingly, like no shenanigans.
If there are any shenanigans, they're in the scene. They're very minimal and very tolerable. If there are any shenanigans, it's. So, anyways, I love again, I can't go over this stuff. There's a little bit of Dreyfuss is just kind of like sitting in the background. Like how they construct these shots. Like again, he can walk and be in these scenes without like bumping into anybody.
Yeah, it's great.
I can imagine it's hard just acting like with someone's like over your shoulders, like right there in your face, and you can't acknowledge him at all. I can imagine that's difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. Also, fun fact here. I've heard this before. I didn't know if it was like I didn't know it was generated on this movie. But again, take it with a grain of salt. It might be a rumor. It might be like an old Hollywood wives' tale. But reportedly, working with John Goodman on this movie, this was the movie that Spielberg kind of brought up. You'd be perfect to play Fred Flintstone if they ever did a Flintstones movie.
Really?
And years later, again, Spielberg produces the Flintstones movie. So, I mean, if you want to, I don't know if that's exactly
correct.
I don't know if that 100% is what gets him the job, but I mean, assuming that is true, I would be shocked if that didn't fact in him being the producer.
I mean, it certainly didn't hurt.
Yeah.
Oh man, what do you think about those Flintstone movies, Dragon? I don't want to go too far off the rails with this, but
well, again, I echo the John Goodman statement where again he was excellent in the Flintstones. I thought he was great in the Flintstones movie. In terms of being Fred Flintstone live action, you couldn't have done better than John Goodman. And again, it's kind of, let me put it this way: the Flintstones movie. I mean, do I like it better than cartoons? Heck no, God no. But there's a bit of a guilty pleasure, kind of a charm to it, like I have with Inspector Gadget. Extent. There's a bit of that there.
Okay.
It's like not to the same level of Inspector Gadget, but to the extent like it's kind of it's a novelty. The first one's a novelty. The second one's like I don't know what I ever saw in that one.
Dragon, as a kid, I genuinely really liked Rock Vegas.
That's the thing. Rock Vegas, even when I was a kid, because I like with the Flintstones movies. Again, we're going to get off this subject really quick, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
With Rock Vegas, it was just the simple fact that one was so much better than Rock Vegas, even as a kid, just seeing because there's something felt off about it too, and it was the fact it was somewhat of a prequel. It was just really weird, and let's not go into it any further. Okay, back on point.
All right. I do like Alan Cummings in Rock Vegas.
I mean, sure. Well, wait. Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. Alan Cummings, again, Alan Cummings is a good actor, too. Even, again, some performances. Sorry, I don't know where I'm going with the Alan Cummings point. Strike the Alan Cummings point from the record.
Sorry.
So, of course, we have Al playing different Al. We have Al playing Matchmaker here, which is nice. I love the Gary Owens thing again as another totem of Pete that's going to impact. I believe this is coming across on the radio here, which again is something that's also going to impact Dorinda here, like him whistling Gary Owens, the very same whistling tune that Pete would whistle, and again he's kind of passing on the knowledge to the next generation, getting closer to a father-son thing, I guess. He's passing on to him, telling him to relax, and again I think it's believable. I have a headcanon thing later on.
Like the one thing that falls apart with the father-son thing is the fact that he's literally like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you, son, for dating my girlfriend."
Yeah, that's weird.
You know what I mean? That's where the father-son element just falls apart.
It is, but to be fair, it's at the very end of the movie too, where
right.
I mean, it becomes abundantly clear at the very end of the movie that breaks down. But well, anyway, what I was saying is I have a little bit of headcanon later on, where I think another time jump happens in this movie. We'll get. I believe another time jump happens in this movie.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I do think the time is a little ambiguous as we get further into this thing.
Anyway, we'll get there when we get there. The point hasn't happened yet for me. I have a theory. We'll get there. My point is that I like that. I believe even at this point that I can see Ted becoming a better pilot. I like that we did that naturally. Yeah. This scene right here in the car between.
You're mighty pretty when you're angry. Wah. Wah.
It's this was actually.
I don't want to go off on another tangent, Dragon, but I never got the appeal of John Wayne movies. I really never did.
I don't want to get into I can't get into a whole John Wayne discussion here, but it's like there's a Western charm.
Give me a good Clint Eastwood Western any day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, well, I think Clint Eastwood had the more well, I can't say he had more stay power, but I mean, he had a little bit more appeal than I think John Wayne did. But anyway. universal appeal than John Wayne. John Wayne's like,
well, I think Eastwood is the quality, John Wayne is the quantity.
Like, yeah, John Wayne's the legacy.
Yeah, exactly.
Clint Eastwood's like, you should get anyone the Clint Eastwood, they're going to get it. Like, you need he's like the new definitive cowboy, or John Wayne's just kind of like when you need like the bow-legged cowboy.
Right. Anyway,
back on point.
Mansions.
So speaking of John Wayne, so it's funny. So the Henry Fonda gag, the gag like she thinks his John Wayne impression sounds like Henry Fonda, that actually happened during the rehearsals when they were doing the scene a couple times. She brought that up, and Spielberg loved it so much because just naturally she thought it sounded like Henry Fonda. They loved it so much they worked it into the actual film.
Nice.
Which when I think Henry Fonda, I think we all think of, at least for me. I mean, the go-to would probably be. Go to probably 12 Angry Men, as well as God, that sounds stupid here, but yeah, he's in Psycho, right?
Fonda? Is he?
Here's the thing. I know the actor who plays Arbogast who was in Psycho, is in 12 Angry Men. I'm pretty sure it's Henry Fonda. I'm pretty sure it's the same guy, but I'm not 100% for some reason today. I don't know why I'm doubting myself.
All right.
I'm pretty sure that's...
know one way or another.
Anyway, okay. Henry Fonda said, so this is one of my favorite scenes in the movie here. I love that. This is the scene where we see, I don't know why, it's probably built in my DNA for my lowest superheroes. I love when people save other people. I don't know.
Well, saving the person on the bus specifically, buses are kind of built into superhero DNA.
Yep, but what I love here is that we see Ted is a good man. So basically, this is a big moment in the movie where we understand that we're not going to be mad or rooting against Ted at all in this movie. We're not. We're not going to be rooting for, oh boy, like in the classic romantic comedy thing, oh, there's a rival, I hope our guy makes him look foolish. We don't do any of that.
And it's not just like Keanu Reeves where it's like, he's too charming. He's almost too good.
And this is really effective directing right here, where he's, again, the rules of the world, the illogical logic at its finest here with the afterlife, where, again, we look up and our guy's kind of like going, I love how quiet and dignified this scene is. That's the thing that really strikes me. Where he just looks over to him. I love, this is the thing that just makes me, it's just oozing with charm in the best of ways, where Dreyfuss gives him like a little, hey, it was really brave how you pulled the bus over with those kids in it. And he gives him that smile. That's all he does. It's great just saying, come on, kid. And he's like, I love he's not like saying, come on, you can do it. It's just like, come on. Just like, give it a shot. If not, we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, oh my God, this is the beautiful moment. He says, hey, you made it. So he realizes he's gone. It's such a charming little moment, and it's a moment that shows that Ted has the heroic bug like Pete does. And of course, that's what's going to gestate after that time jump, that we're going to see, okay, he's becoming the next generation of Pete. Pete's teaching job is done. That's what we're going to facilitate. And also, it wins over the charm of, it wins over the heart of Dorinda here. And of course, again, we're striking all the right story notes, because now we buy it. Again, she's seeing yet another Pete-like quality in this guy, which is kind of convincing her, maybe I can move on. Right now, she's not fully in the space of I'm ready to move on, but she thinks, well, maybe I can move on. Of course, we have a lot of... Yakety Yak was really big in the 80s. And for me, when I think Yakety Yak in use in a movie, I think of Twins, personally.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's just me. And of course, Twins was a year earlier than this. So right. I don't know if it was like maybe possibly just a pure coincidence. But this is a great sequence here. Not everybody can cook.
I mean, this song is just like, you got to admit, the song is an insane earworm.
Whenever I think of, it is an earworm. You're right, because I mean, sometimes I go to restaurants and they'll play radio, and the Yakety Yak will come on a lot during that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if Spielberg has like a vendetta against Julia Childs, because think of it as like spilling crap on her face here, and the Dan Aykroyd gag about Julia Childs. All we're missing now is a Mr. Rogers like boxing match with Julia Childs. That's all we're missing right now. So, by the way, of course, what I was getting is that, in terms of like when you fake the meal as your own, I mean, the thing that always pops in mind is Mrs. Doubtfire, when she has like the fancy, the fancy restaurant quality meal that she's passing off as her own.
Yeah, right.
I love this. To me, feels like a Holly Hunter thing. I can't guarantee, but it feels like something she would do. Where, like she's like covering herself in like the mashed potatoes and stuff, just like kind of show like, and it pours the flour over herself just to sell it. It's the clever sell of like, I did this all myself. I'm not perfect. I'm a mess. Kind of funny. And of course, Dreyfus kind of being on to her, like, she can't do toast. Also, like little great micro details too. Where again, like, well, not a micro detail. So like the mashed potatoes, like more like a micro detail. Like when he's when she slams the door right in Pete's face, it's kind of symbolic of what Pete's about to be feeling. Sure. But right now, Pete's just kind of, he's just kind of watching and fully kind of taking some pot shots here. It hasn't really fully sunk in yet. And this moment here, and again, I like that. Again, Tiki, like the buffalo, we don't waste any part of it. To quote the old Brad Bird philosophy, we use every part of the buffalo, the old Native American philosophy there. Every bit, nothing goes to waste. We're right here in this little casual scene here where she's still hung up on people. Where again, it's the closest thing to like it's like borderline a cliche, where it's like she's talking about, like, oh, she can't stop talking about the ex. But right now, we illustrate her problem. She's, basically she's moving on visually. She's moving on. She's having a date with another man that she likes. But Pete, we're seeing this kind of as I guess she's not seeing this as a problem. The problem is she can't truly move on if she keeps talking about Pete. So like she's being anchored to Pete, and it's eventually it's kind of a negative thing right now. But again, we're not fully seeing the negative thing because we're on Pete's side here because we like Pete. But we also kind of care for Ted.
No, it's definitely one of those things where it's just like it's very relatable. Where especially if you've if you've been in a relationship with someone who did lose someone close to them, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a boyfriend or anything. It could just be a close friend. It's like that person. I'm not saying this in a bad way or anything, but that person does kind of like overshadow their life in some ways, and it is sometimes a very difficult process to get over. I don't want to get into personal details here, but let's just say I know that from experience.
Yep.
So, yeah. All right. The Evel Knievel voice talking about that.
Yep.
No, I love how sobering this whole exchange is for Dreyfus, where she's just like, did he really think that I was having fun with this? Did he really think that the Evel Knievel voice was actually charming me? It's like, no, it's like I was kind of in a living hell, dating this guy. Just because, like, worrying for his own well-being and worrying for me, and, it was just like a never-ending ball of stress.
It's a little thing. I know today it's like a non-issue at all, but it's like that. I think the detail that Ted wears glasses so he can fly.
Sure.
Like little dude, they never go over this thing. Sometimes you need pilots, and sometimes pilots need glasses. I know it's a small detail. It's just kind of a little something. Like you don't see leading men with glasses a lot of the time, especially back then. Refreshing. Of course, here we have a little bit of again, he's basically right now, again, Pete's he's kind of teetering on, like, again, he's just either talking about him and he's still he thinks he's still in the running, so to speak, and it's really dawn on him with this bit with Dorinda here, which is like, what are you doing to me? And again, it's like I'm trying to basically trying to get her to move on, but again, like, I'm not Pete, I will never be Pete, but again, he's not being harsh about it at all. It's like he's
no, he's actually being quite confident about it. You know what I mean? He's like he's laying out that, like, yeah, I understand that you've lost something and you have these memories with him, but I have my own memories to share with you. Like, we could, and I love that about it. It's like, it's such a, again, Trey, it's like this whole setup could just fall apart so easily. It could just so easily go into just like stupid sitcom soap opera bullshit. And frankly, I think it's kind of a magic trick that Spielberg manages to pull it off so well that I'm just like watching this scene where so many, like, really odd choices, narratively speaking, are happening. And I'm just like, yeah, you got me, Spielberg. I'm on board with this, every little choice.
Yep. And again, part of me wonders if this would have been more effective if it was always like the song.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I wonder. Again, I can't help but wonder if that's just like Spielberg just kind of regretting that. Like, man, I wish I would call the movie something else in retrospect. You know, but again, at the end of it, it's not a problem. Obviously, again, films like Up, you know, again, doesn't the title sometimes doesn't matter, folks. I mean, again, if it vaguely correlates, it vaguely correlates. I mean, thematically, the idea is like they'll always like Peter will always be on our mind, like the love will always be there, but maybe in a different form.
Right.
Thematic idea. So this is the big moment where I was really wowed by the movie here. Right? I know it was kind of getting there already, but it was like I was kind of hoping it was getting there, and this is when it really like fully. Oh yeah, we're going here. It's the moment where it's like again the true ultimate test of love is again ensuring your soulmate's happiness after you're gone, no matter how much it hurts. I mean, that's the mind blowing idea of Spielberg dealing with the afterlife. That's what really dazzles me about this man. I know I said it before, but again, it's just, this is where it really comes in the fray. He's seeing it's like we had the closest thing we get to a selfish line from in regards to this is like, "Hey, that's my girl, pal." But he's not saying like authoritatively. He's just saying, "Hey, that's my girl." He's hurt by it. And I guess the idea he can't leave this guy. Basically, it's kind of a watching you thing where he's kind of tied to our guy in a ghost in the form of a ghost. Of course, watching a very underrated series I'd recommend people check out on online, YouTube. Just giggle it. Fun fact. But yeah, this right here, this is so heartbreaking here. Basically, it's like he's begging. Obviously, he can't influence this thing. Also, maybe he's begging for the tape to stop because he did want him to fast forward through the thing. So that's the closest thing to him acting. That's kind of him acting self-interest, but again, he's not really trying to influence anything. Like, well, I don't know. I guess you're kind of right, Tiki, but I don't know. The fact of the matter is, he doesn't get plucked out when he does that. He gets plucked out after he does the dream thing. That's what makes me think the dream thing is
Right.
him like actually acting in self-interest. So earlier in the movie, I'm sorry. Do you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Earlier in the movie, as I was kind of mentioning a little bit, I love that. Basically, her whole arc revolves around like the last word. One of the last things they had in their intimate conversation about like settling down in Flat Rock was you're never going to get over me. You're going to miss me. And her things, I'm going to meet other guys. And basically, the truth lies in between. The truth lies in between what they need to get to at what she needs to get to in her character arc. She needs to move on with other guys and stop missing him. She needs to achieve what she said would happen, and also kind of prove his thing, kind of get over the thing that he said that was also true. That's kind of what we're seeing kind of unfold before us here. Where she's still missing him like all get out, and he can see that, and he's about to try to kind of like use that to his advantage here. Where he doesn't want to let go.
Yeah.
Of course, now she's putting on the dress and everything. Pete's definitely on her mind. And again, we're having basically these bits here. I mean, maybe it's like a 24-hour thing. Like now it's kind of nighttime, so maybe all the actions kind of added up. Maybe that's it. It's a little inconsequential. But the fact of the matter is, I like that. Again, the closest thing he's going to have to interaction. I love that he only interacts with as a ghost, as a guardian angel. He only interacts with her, with one person, one time in the entire film. Once. They're in the big ending. One time. I love how earned that is. Right now, he's kind of close.
But I really do like this whole dance sequence, where Dreyfus is, he's trying as hard as he can to actively be involved in the moment while still not being able to physically touch her. Yeah. It's like I love the blocking that's involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I do think that Smoke Gets in Your Eyes is a very good song thematically for obviously for the fire of it all.
That is a good. It's a great alternate choice. I won't lie, it's a great alternate choice, but it just makes you wonder, like, man, why? Again, it's like either that or could we worked in Always in a different capacity? It would have been ages before Luke Cage. Couldn't we have like a phrase that they said between the two of them that involved Always? Couldn't we have done that?
Well, I was thinking that Always was going to come back at the very end, like Dreyfus was, was going to say very dramatically, like, I'll always love you. And then she'll say, like, always. You know what I mean? That's where I thought we were going with it.
Yeah. It's like the one real missed opportunity of the film, I guess.
Right.
Here we go. Here's the dream sequence. She's basically, what's so fascinating about this idea is that again, with the rules, the illogical logic of the world here, how things work is, I love that she's in between consciousness right now. You know, she's talking in her sleep, so she's not fully asleep, but she's not fully awake. And this is again, he can actually converse with her while she's doing this, and I love that idea. Again, like she's kind of in limbo in regards to that, which is a perfect place for him to kind of actually talk with, as close as he can actually be to being with her when she's like this, which he knows she does this all the time.
Mm.
So he has an in, and the minute he has that in, he gets plucked out. That's him acting his own self-interest and finding like a little loophole in how to continue a relationship with her.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And again, in doing so, he's kind of not intending to, but he's hurting her by really holding her back, like, and basically making the hesitation she has even worse with like being in her dreams constantly.
Yeah, and I mean, I've gone over this before, but I really do like the, you know, how we see the effect that people, because Dragon, when it comes to ghosts, right, like my actual like belief in ghosts, like I honestly feel like the whole idea of ghosts to begin with are sort of like a coping mechanism. And I saw that with my mom when she lost my grandpa, you know, and she would always say that my grandpa would leave nickels around for her because I guess my grandpa played nickel slot machines or something like that. And so after my grandpa died, you know, she'd like find nickels all over the place, and it was her way of just, you know, kind of coping with it. You know what I mean? I think there's something very comforting in the idea that someone's always there. And so with this movie, I find it very fascinating that we always have to be at an arm's length with it, right? Like we really explore those kind of like those senses of fleeting emotion of like when we're thinking about a loved one, like are they in the room when we have really strong emotions to a loved one that had recently passed? It's some very heady stuff.
I love the detail on a rewatch that, you know, he goes back to start, literally the same place where he met her, the very same location where he started all of this at. And I love that we do that because, again, it's on a rewatch, what you kind of take away is it's representative of what he's doing to her. He's taking her back to the beginning, directly back to the loss, where, again, this is basically the aftermath of the loss.
Mm.
Taking her all back there. And again, I love the dialogue, and Audrey Hepburn, of course, the wonderful Audrey Hepburn, Roman Holiday, you name it. She's been in so many things, of course. You know, one of the big names engraved on Hollywood. It's on the back of the Hollywood sign. I love to think on the back, and this is not true, obviously. I love to think that maybe on all the stars, all the real stars of the olden days, they engraved their names on the back of the Hollywood sign.
Oh God!
Still, that's a silly notion because I've seen. I have no idea if it's true. I remember in the movie Chaplin, like the Charlie Chaplin and Doug Fairbanks, they would hang out around the old Hollywood land sign back in the day. I think it was before they dropped the land at that point. Anyways, they would hang out around the letters, and I like to think that maybe the old Hollywood stars did that. Anyway, so it's stupid little headcanon. Point being, point being though, I do love the way she conveys the style of that. You know, you're wasting valuable time. And basically, that's what, you know, you plucked yourself out of there because you were wasting valuable time by trying to have a relationship that will never manifest itself. Again, your time is over. You're trying to pass it on there, and this is a really wonderful conversation they're having, where it's a really nice scene where she puts it in perspective. This isn't a punishment. This is a gift, and I love how she says, "You're a good man." And again, we saw that he was a good man. I was a little worried about that on the. A part of me is a little worried about when she said that the first time. I was like, oh man, I hope it tracks that he was a good man. That, you know, otherwise we'll just see like obviously it did at that point. A part of me is wondering on a rewatch is like, oh my god, yes, he is a good man. He's doing all these really heroic things. Obviously, he was a good man in life the whole time. So basically, he was allowed to go back, which we don't send back the other kind. It's a great line in itself too. Is that he's sent back to get closure as well as mentor that, you know, basically do the guardian angel things to get closure, which is why, you know, that's the gift of it all. There, it's not pain; it's a gift.
Right.
Really heady, really great heady ideas.
Yeah, and again, I like how confident Spielberg is with this material, and he just, you know, he doesn't back away from it. He doesn't shy away from the more schmaltzy elements of it. He's just like, no, this is the story that I want to tell. Weird plot elements and supernatural twists and all. You know, this is the identity of the movie that I'm making, and it's, you know, and like I said, it's just a very weirdly personal movie to Spielberg, but that's kind of why I like it so much.
All right, so my big headcanon theory here is that when Pete re-enters the fray, because he was plucked out of things, I think it's the same effect of when we first got first met Hap. is the fact that I think another time jump has happened because he was plucked out, and that brings us to now. And now, because think about it,
I totally see that.
you
Yeah,
see Ted now. Ted is as good a pilot as Pete ever was because he pulled off an impossible landing even Pete barely would be able to make. He ran out of fuel and he made the perfect landing. I absolutely like to think that again. Literally, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase it. I don't think it's. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Pete did. Pete did the same thing at the start of the movie. The point is like he's just as good as Pete now. So basically, Pete's job is half done. So now we've very strategically story wise, he's accomplished the teaching job. Now he has to say his goodbyes. That's all that's left for him. So we're not like overstaying our welcome. We've accomplished half the goal, and now that's all that's left. And Ted's in good hands now. Ted's all good. And again, with the time that has passed, it's kind of facilitated that, and it's a very economic way of doing that, assuming that's the intent, which I believe it is. So this stuff here, I mean, all these pyrotechnic effects right here.
I got to admit, man, this is some harrowing stuff. It really is. I mean, when Spielberg wants to do a suspenseful sequence involving a natural disaster, he does not shy away from it, man. He did some good stuff.
I don't mean just to keep citing the olden days, folks, but I mean, the fact of the matter is, I mean, I imagine that stunt's a lot more risky back then than it would be today.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Right. I mean, yeah, you're right, Dragon. Just the scale of the pyrotechnics, and of course, like you said, it's like there's no CG back then. It's like you can't just like up the level of flames digitally on a computer. It's like what they had on camera was what they were working with.
You can't do Spider-Man 2. You can't just have you can't have the actor walk into a room with minimal flames, then just have literally shoot all the flames and basically crop them. I mean, that's the closest technique we'd have, and it's still like a few years. It's still at least 5 to 7 years away from when they'd be able to do that. Like Spider-Man 2, that's 2004. That's when they're able to they shoot the room full of fire, and then they shoot the scene with minimal fire with the actor. They basically splice them together. And again, it's not 100% a computer effect. It's a blue screen effect, which again is not impossible to do at the time. But again, still, this is I don't know. Again, this is still way before that. So I still think there's a lot of like. I'm assuming a lot of this firemen are trained stuntmen. Let me put it to you that way. I think there's.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Of course, here we see the guys. Ted's got a lot of respect, a lot more than when he came there. I mean, everybody's kind of going to him. They already liked him from the start, but now they respect him.
Yeah.
There's Keith David right there, and you're going Keith David here. So he's again. This is where we hit the big switcheroo of the movie. This is really clever. So we're getting there. I suppose we're going to intercut between the tension. Basically, again, Spielberg's doing a lot with little time here. Where again, we have our guys in peril here, who we do care about. Firemen in peril, and we have to. Our guys are in peril, and we have to care about them. I think we care about them because we just see the harrowing situations there, and we're intercutting this between, the rescue. We think, the audience, again, the last big match, we think we know what's going to happen. Ted and Pete are going to get in there. It's a big it's a job like no other. Yeah.
It's going to be like, all right, buddy, time to prove your worth.
Pete could never even do this. How the heck is he going to have any chance? And of course, right. Center stage, buddy boy, center stage. And the plane gets
exactly what I was thinking when I was watching this, Dragon. You're absolutely right.
Plane gets stolen by Dorinda. I think the bigger question, T, the thing I really want you to tell
Dragon,
me,
this sucks because it subverts expectations, and apparently subverting expectations is just a terrible thing that you should never ever do. I'm sorry, I just need to get that one rib in there.
There's an interesting question I do want to pose to you, Tiki.
Yes.
Why do you think Dorinda gets in the plane personally? Why do you think she gets in the plane?
I think she gets in the plane for two reasons. One, to prove to herself that she can do it, of course, because we do have that arc that, frankly, isn't really necessarily explored as much as it maybe should be, with her wanting to fly and wanting to be in the thick of things.
I'd say Pete traumatized her on that one, so I think that's the reason we don't.
But more importantly, I feel like it's very much like her kind of taking control of her own destiny. Like, instead of being the one on the ground worrying in her own mind, like, she very quickly realizes she's in over her head, but in her own mind, she's like, no, screw this. Like, I can't have two men in my life die and leave me stranded here on the ground just watching the whole thing unfold. That's what I read it as, Dragon. It's that she's kind of taking matters into her own hands. Like I'm not going to suffer in the anxiety sense of the word anymore.
Right. Yeah, she's taking an active role in protecting the person that she's come to love.
Yeah.
Of course, here we have, so again, this is the big, Keith David moment. Hey, can I borrow you? Al wants you for something. He's like, okay. Of course, again, as I said, the formula for success: put Holly Hunter in a plane.
God.
Your pilot lingo, which, by the way, of course, here's the thing I really would love to know, because this thing, it would have been there'd been a great distance between these two things, obviously, but I mean, I remember Incredibles, Brad Bird mentioned, she learned all the pilot lingo for those scenes in Incredibles. I wonder if maybe she retained all the information from this movie, or if she just, maybe she had to relearn.
Like she was the most experienced one on set, and she even like kind of helped out in the writing process with that kind of stuff.
I'd love to think that, maybe she just had all the stuff in this movie. Maybe she brought that into Incredibles, but again, she probably just refreshed herself on it either, regardless. So,
Yeah. Right.
Of course, I love the reveal here where we don't see. I love that the Court Paramount's kind of the trick of the trailer, where they'll just pop up in places. But I love that we don't quite see him get in. We see him walking towards the thing. We don't quite see him just pop in there, and we just kind of see him reveal that he's there. It's kind of an epic shot. They're just walking to the plane that's kind of like pulling away, which is very dangerous. But cool looking. And again, he's a ghost, so no stakes. Of course, now we're setting up the tension here. They need that plane. That's the big. I want to say it's identical. Sorry, let me phrase it. I forget if it's specifically. I can't be 57 because 57 blew up. But I want to say in the scene in Act 1, and we had that great blue lighting, which of course is going to pay off by the end of all things here. He said that plane, he pointed out a certain plane. I don't know if he was just pointing out his own plane, but he made it sound like he also loved that plane. I believe this is the same plane. I could be wrong. I'm not sure.
I think it's not necessarily his own plane, but it's the same model of plane.
Yeah.
Is how I read it.
That's fair. So yeah, now they're really in the thick of it together. And of course, again, we've paired both of them together here. And the fact that, I guess the grand sense also, so again, we put her in the thick of it, because the last story needs to be told is between these two characters. Ted's in good hands. Ted's arc is complete. Ted's all good. And this is the story-wise, this is the story that we do need closure on, again, to be economic. And I love that. I love when Spielberg, this film feels, out of all the Spielberg movies we've covered this month, it feels the most economic. We don't drag, we don't kind of waste time. I think it's everything we need is here. It's just 2 hours to the dot. Sometimes Spielberg
and that's the thing, Dragon. It's like basically every other Spielberg movie that we've covered has definitely had issues with dragging its feet.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this one, it's like, and I feel like this is a good case for me to make. It's like, it's not every movie needs to be 2.5 hours if it's directed by someone famous.
Yep.
Then again, I say that, and I'm like anxiously awaiting Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I'm sure is going to be like fucking like 3 hours and 15 minutes.
It is so no comments.
Anyway,
the director's cut.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 5-hour runtime.
Well, again, I think remember, it's a technicality, mind you, but it theatrically released OJ Made in America. It's a long.
Right.
That movie is roughly, God, it has to be 7 hours.
6 hours or something.
It's 7 or 8 hours. I think it's 7.5. I think it's 7 or 7.5 hours.
That's insane.
Oh, there's a little Star Wars Easter egg coming up here, by the way. It's either a complete. Here's the thing. So when they go down here, when they're trying to get really low so they can kind of save the guys on the ground, but of course it's really risky, and of course surrounded by fire. And we see what happens when these planes get too close to fire. The fuel line can catch on fire and you blow up. Very big risk. So when she goes down here, you'll notice like something kind of falls off the plane, something kind of gets shot off the plane practically. On like the side of it, and when that happens, you hear a very familiar sound effect from Star Wars. It's the TIE fighter sound effect when the TIE fighter fires, like right there.
Oh, yeah, yeah, for sure.
And now it's one of two things. It's most likely just like a little, they pulled the sound effect from the TIE fighter, most likely. But imagine this, though. What if that was the sound that Ben Burt recorded? Just a fuel line just kind of popping off like that. What if that was, what if that was like the origin of the TIE fighters? It's possible.
I'm sure if you went into one of those like Ben Burt commentary tracks on the DVDs, he'd be happy to explain it to you.
Yep. It would be. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So, guys.
Yeah. Not to throw shade at it or anything. It's just like that's it's like the sound design kind of overshadows the rest of the elements on those old Star Wars commentaries.
Yep.
But
very cool though.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not saying it's not interesting. I'm just saying it's like an unconventional choice to have like a predominantly a sound guy as your commentary guy, but still, it's interesting. It's definitely educational merit to it.
Yeah. I love the little touches in the piloting here, where she basically has to twist the wheel and she has to like kind of like vibrate the wheel to kind of like get it to do. Well, I'm sorry, she's not the point is it's vibrating. So, I mean, I love that she has to hold the wheel in such a way so she can make that near impossible turn out there. And again, as I mentioned during the early scenes, when we're really in the thick of it, especially again if you're dealing with fires with planes, how unbelievably hot it gets in there.
Mm-hmm.
The intense heat of it all. Where again, it's a movie about the afterlife, and the closest thing we get to hell is getting the fire that they're flying into.
Oh yeah.
This is just beautiful. Here's where we hit just the beauty of the movie. Here's where we allow the beautiful stuff. Where it feels almost Donner Superman-esque. So it's just like the clouds parting here, and just like the two of them just like the height of. It's almost like maybe not Donner Superman. I mean, it feels a little Donner Superman with the clouds, but let's say Aviator. Aviator, of course, having those moments where you're above the sky, the night sky, that sort of stuff.
Right.
And this lighting here, and of course, he's in the same pose as he was when he was opening the fridge way back in Act 1, by the way. Like the blue lighting kind of looking towards there. And this framing is great. Just, her looking forward, and of course the question, like, how much of this is she hearing? And of course we get like a little...
I love how ambiguous it is, Dragon. I love how ambiguous it is. I love ambiguous endings like this. I could spend hours just thinking about, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much of it she actually heard because the emotion was there.
Yes. And the fact of the matter is she's thinking about Pete, because this was the last thing they talked about, that fact that she did what, she achieved something for herself there. She achieved, whether she hears him or not, she's thinking about what Pete would think on the matter. So it's kind of the point being she does get the closure she needs regardless. So whether it's by his influence or not. And again, I don't know why the classiest thing in this that I love is him saying, like, I should have said I love you. I should have said I loved you without making it a joke or something. I should have said straight to you like he's doing right now. About that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he says I should have told you that a long time ago without any jokes. Like, that's great, especially given who Dreyfuss is as a person. He does that all the time. It's just these wonderful storytellers, kind of really light kind of guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I got to admit, Dragon, I'm kind of like that sometimes. Like, I actually kind of, like, it wasn't a big deal or anything, but I sort of, like, cracked a joke in the middle of a tense moment at work the other day, and my coworker was like, hey, why'd you do that? Why were you mad at me? And I'm like, what? I wasn't mad at you. I was just joking around. Like, hey, you picked a bad time to walk away. It's like, it's no big deal, So I do have that, like, kind of like a sardonic sense of humor like that. And I can relate to stuff like that.
Yep. Here we have the brushing of the hair coming up here. It's like, so it's like a little
again, the big crux of everything, the big crux of the arc, what this whole movie hinges on is a brush of the hair.
Well, we can't say it's like she get on the plane because obviously she's on the plane for the whole movie. So,
well, yes, Dragon. We can't do the she got on the plane thing. Yes, you're right about that.
So I love the calm after the fire, and I'm going to get really heady and really kind of like film school snob on you here, okay? So forgive me. I love the dichotomy and the great use of fire and water in how we do it. I could be just reading into this way too much, but look at it this way: water is the soft landing. It's it's either The water, when we have this beautiful shot where she goes, she and then he go in the water, and they have this moment of like intersect, and basically in going in the water. I mean, I just want to get all heady about Spielberg and the symbolism of water here, but the way we look at water in this movie is, water is opposed to fire, which is like, again, death, danger, and just intensity and like death at any time. Water is the ether that allows you to be otherworldly, to be in an afterlife of your own. It's not dangerous, but if you stay too long, you're not coming back.
Right.
Right. It's that sort of thing.
Look at it, yeah.
Yeah, and again, it leads to the one moment of interaction between someone who's in the afterlife and someone who's in the living. And again, the question is, again, she could have drowned there. And again, maybe, again, I'd like to, my own headcanon, I like to think that she saw him in that moment. Again,
she didn't fucking drown, Dragon. This isn't a Nolan movie, all right?
I didn't, no, she's not. I'm saying it's like, she could have drowned.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you were like trying to make it ambiguous. Like, oh, the rest of the movie could have been playing out in her head as she was.
I'm saying it's like the guy from earlier when they revived him, but again, there was a moment where he saw Dreyfus. So it's like she could have.
You're saying, yeah, because she's near death, that's why she sees Dreyfus.
Exactly.
Like, and I totally buy into that. That's absolutely like, yeah, I feel like that follows the rules that were set up perfectly.
Of course, this right here, and this is the big moment, the only time he interacts with anyone, the only time he touches somebody, he touches her. And again, it's the fact that it's not that he's saving her life right now. It's the fact that he's kind of guiding her up there. It's just it's a liberty, but it's a beautiful liberty taken at just the right moment. Where he's kind of guiding her to the surface, maybe giving her a reason to kind of swim up there. I don't know. It's like something. It's like showing her, like, there's obviously a swell of panic ordinarily that would hit somebody if you're drowning. It's kind of a calm that's brought to her in the moment when she needs it.
Uh-huh. All right, getting towards the end of the film here.
Also, the last save of someone he cares about, too, because he saved Alway in Act 1, he's saving the woman he loves in Act 3, and he kind of saved Ted proverbially, who he kind of grew to love in the second act. He's kind of saving a person per act, one would say.
Sure. I want to get this in there. What do you think of the fact that, Ted doesn't get much, Ted gets development, but we don't see a lot of that development. You know what I mean? I feel like Ted as a character could be a little, he could use a little bit more time in the oven, I feel.
Here's the thing, you're not wrong, but I feel he does kind of hit all the marks story-wise, but again, character-wise, he could be deeper. You're right. He could be deeper, but right now, this, again, it's a story it's Pete's story, and Ted is just...
I get that it's totally Dreyfus's story, but I don't know, again, there is that, the whole, that's my girl and that's my boy. I feel like, that line is probably aged terribly.
Well, look, you're right, it has aged terribly. The fact of the matter is that I think the bigger thing is that he is living on within Ted, and he is his replacement is Ted. So in a way, it's I love that it's not a sad ending. I love that it's not sad. I love that it's not a sad ending. It feels satisfying. It's like they'll always be there, but not holding each other back. I love that symbolically, she's moving forward, she's walking forward, and he turns around, he's walking off. She walks forward to her future, which is Ted and her friends and everything, not looking back, not being held back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's I really do like the fact that we don't end on some big Hollywood kiss or anything like that between her and Ted. I like that it's more subtle than that. That it's more kind of she's going to the guy that she's eventually going to marry. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Less this is her true love right away.
Yeah, again, for all we know, it might not be the end all be all true love. It just might
be
right.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think the movie definitely showed some restraint in that regard.
At the end of the day, the one thing I want to get in before we get into the final thoughts is just with the ending with him walking off, by the way. I might get a little heady here, just real quick, is that I love that he impacted all of their lives for the better. Again, Al's kind of become a teacher, and, she's moved on with things. And I love that I think it's interesting that he's not flying at the end of this movie, but he's walking to a place higher than he could ever fly in a plane.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a good pull. I would have never thought to make that connection. That's good. That.
Final thoughts.
Okay. So, final thoughts, Dragon. Just very simply, I mean, this might be the diamond in the rough Spielberg movie. I like it a lot. Dare I say, I love it. I mean, it's certainly not like an iconic one like Jurassic Park or Jaws or anything like that. But I mean, just in terms of Spielberg movies that kind of get left by the wayside and nobody really talks about, like I can't think of a better one in terms of like just an obscure pick. It's just like there's just so much to admire about this movie. There's so many plot threads that could go south, but they just don't. They weave their way throughout the movie perfectly, and I love the mix of kind of like the magical realism, the rules, the world building, if you will. It just all comes together to form this like really great, intimate little movie that still has some trappings of a Spielberg blockbuster in a good way with all the fire stuff. So really, Dragon, I feel like this movie is an excellent bridge between blockbuster Spielberg and personal Spielberg. I love it for that reason.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to echo a lot of what you said there. I mean, always is a hidden gem, absolutely. Diamond in the Rough is the perfect analogy for it. I feel, and I looked into this, Stig, it's kind of, the reason it's kind of become hidden is that, I'm not saying, it's somewhat maligned by critics. Not bad, but it was kind of giving a low rating, like a lower rating. I mean, Ebert railed against it pretty hard, and then some people gave more positive reviews. But from what I can find, it's like it got somewhat tarnished when it came out, and that's probably the reason it kind of got swept under the rug. And I feel it's unfortunate. I think people need to keep in perspective. I think it was tarnished by people who forgot that not every Spielberg movie has to be Yates, to use the old analogy. And not every Spielberg movie has to be Yates. It doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. This is a more early version of just a nice under the radar Spielberg film. For me, I know we don't see eye to eye on it 100%, but I mean, to me, this is like the way I feel about The Terminal is kind of the way I think you feel about this movie.
I think so. Yeah.
Again, it's not a spectacular defining it. It's not like Spielberg with a capital S, but it's kind of Spielberg, like in a fine font of some variety. It's like right. It's like this movie has a really nice font with like the always being the plane with the Y, by the way. So let's say it's like a fancy font like that. It's just a pleasant reminder of. I mean, this is going to sound a little schmaltzy here, but again, the movie just kind of borderlines on that in a really great way here. Where this movie is it's a pleasant reminder of what you can do with film. That's kind of what it is, Oddly enough, just going to round out Spielberg Month, I love that it kind of connects to all of our selections in some way, shape, or form by sheer coincidence. Picking this at complete random, practically. Practically, going into it knowing nothing. Again, the Ghost Pilot. That's all. Is that this? I think about the connections here. So of course, you have a bit of a. There's a feel. There's a feel for the nostalgic like there was with Ready Player One, basically in the making of the movie, and the kind of an old Hollywood vibe, whichever way Spielberg had a nostalgic tie to it, like we would have Ready Player One, and people have like nostalgia for the old movie, of course, just the remake of it all, Ready Player One. There are the bigger ideas of love, basically asking the big questions about love and kind of affection in human relationships. We kind of do with AI, and of course there's an underwater sequence that's quite dazzling, a little bit of vague AI fingerprints on there if you want to just kind of compare it to something if you're looking for something. And lastly, with the Empire of the Sun, of course, there's a lot of planes, and of course the connection to Spielberg's father and the new Hollywood kind of late 80s vibe to the whole thing. So always is a feel-good ending to Spielberg Month, to say the least. So I think we lucked out and we chose well.
Yeah. All right, Dragon, I'm just looking at the list of Spielberg movies just to kind of tease out the next season, potentially. Of course, we're not going to make any commitments here, but we've got some very early Spielberg films that we haven't done, some pre-Jaws stuff, your Amblins, your Duels, your Sugarland Express. Yep. So that I feel like that's just a means of like availability. Like if we do have availability for those in the future, we'll definitely do them, especially Duel. We really want to do Duel, folks. Trust us. And then after that, Dragon, we have 1941. Dragon, next year we got to do 1941.
That is the one that broke the man for comedies.
I feel like that's the one where it's like, if Always is the underappreciated hidden gem. 1941 is just like the skeleton in the closet. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the one that haunts. That's the telltale heart of the Spielberg movies, presumably based on reputation alone.
Right. Anyways, we have Amistad.
I'm honestly the one I really want to get to is I'm trying to remember. I want to get Munich's the one I'm really.
Munich is the one I'm honestly kind of surprised didn't make it onto this roster, and I'm kind of happy that it didn't because I feel like this roster worked itself out really well. But yeah,
I mean, Amistad one for sure, but I mean Munich to me, I'm more excited for. I'm more just based on not having seen. I mean Munich more than Amistad in my case. I haven't seen either of the films. So those are the ones I'd be going and clean to.
Based on the hype, I'm more excited for Munich. Yeah.
Munich, I've seen clips of Munich, and the clips I've seen of Munich just fascinating me, kind of the way Empire of the Sun did to an extent.
And then Dragon, after that, we have a 1-2 punch here, man. We have two. Like I feel the same way about one movie that you feel about another movie. We have Warhorse and Lincoln.
God.
Hey, Dragon, I have not seen a frame of Warhorse. Like I haven't even seen the trailer for Warhorse. The only thing I know about Warhorse is that I don't even remember what YouTuber did it at this point. But the whole like it's not just a horse, it's a horse.
I'm just because you keep bringing up Warhorse, I gotta say one thing. All right, okay.
What?
Here's my ridiculous connection to Warhorse. There's an American Dad joke that was called Warhorse, and Tiki, I kid you not. Here's what happened. All right. I don't want to go into ridiculous things that got us there, but it was a bad episode. An American Dad held on a lot better than Family Guy did for a while. Point being, Stan was turned into a horse. It was like his brain was in the horse. And the fact of the matter is, at the end of the episode, after they did the thing, it was like kind of a code at the very end of the episode. And he says, "There's one thing we must do before I put my brain back in my own body." And they go to an office, and he revealed Steven Spielberg's office. And they go for a meeting with Steven Spielberg, and he says, "So you want to do what?" And then we pan over and reveal the Warhorse, like putting down paper. It says, "Yes, Steven, it's time. We must do this." Where basically they want to ride together, like doing a Warhorse run together.
Oh man! All right. And so yeah, look. For all I know, Warhorse could be like the Always of the 2010s. You know what I mean? It's like for all I know, like all I know about that movie is that there's very thick British accents, and apparently he's not just a horse, but he's a war horse. God damn it! I know very little about that movie.
I do want to put one thing in perspective, though, Tiki. The actual Always we're going to have quite possibly might be the West Side Story thing coming out, the West Side Story remake, because again, this was a remake.
Oh, that's not going to be Always, my friend. I am stoked for that movie, but that's going to be a big one.
I mean, in terms of a remake, and that Always was a remake, and West Side Story will also be Spielberg doing a remake again.
Oh, yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, if you want to be technical about it, the BFG is kind of a remake as well.
Well, I mean, okay, fine. Look at that as like Lord of the Rings as a remake of that animated one, sure.
Well, I kind of do, because Peter Jackson surprisingly lifted a lot of shots from that, but that's a whole different.
All right, fair enough. Anyway, let's round it out a little. Okay.
All right. But and then of course to round things out, we have The Post, Dragon, the most epic of all Spielberg movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you can see, folks, like, look, there's a couple things I am looking forward to. Any of that early stuff I'm very anxious to get into. I think Munich at this point is probably the most mainstream Spielberg movie we have left. And in the future, like I will just say, like West Side Story might be my most anticipated movie of 2020. I'll have to see a trailer before I call that for sure. But
has Spielberg ever done a musical?
No.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But in the meantime, Dragon, why don't you do the outro since I lost it?
All right. Well, stay tuned until next time when we embark on another flight of wonder aboard Spielberg Month.
Do 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 do.
Always.
Always.
Never backwards. Forward, always.